Chapter 570. The first round of the competition continued. On the first day, every participant had to fight 20 matches. Aside from strength, such high-intensity matches were a test of the participants' ability to withstand pressure. After Yunkerson finished a match, she walked back and looked at Xiao Chen. She smiled and said, "Xiao Chen, how many matches have you fought? How are the results?" Before Xiao Chen could reply, Lu Suifeng interrupted, he has won all 5 matches. Furthermore, he did not even draw his saber, just like senior sister Yun. Yunkerson smiled and said, "Mine was purely luck. Furthermore, it was not an easy victory. However, there are not many experts in our group. As long as I do not lose 5 matches, I will be able to qualify." In the first round of elimination, the seeded participants did not appear. Hence, many of the groups did not have any peak experts. This was the case for Xiao Chen's Group 6 and Yunkerson's Group 3. However, there were also some death groups. There were many veteran experts like Bai Zhan in those groups. There were also heaven-defying people like Xianyuan Zhantian and Nangong Ziyue. Being placed in such a group was a tragedy for ordinary participants. It was unfortunate that Murong Chong was placed in such a group. Lu Suifeng said softly, "Murong Chong is back. He lost another match. Now, he has lost 2 matches." After Murong Chong returned, he saw Xiao Chen and Yunkerson. He could not help but smile bitterly. "I really want to switch groups with you too. The experts in my group are too monstrous." Seeing Murong Chong being so casual, Xiao Chen knew that he had let go of his worries. He said, "Your strength is definitely not weak. In the eyes of others, you are very difficult to deal with. As long as you perform as you normally do, you will definitely be able to clear the first round." Murong Chong said sullenly, "I understand. Let's work hard together and do our best to enter the ranking matches." Yunkerson nodded and said, "Definitely." Mu Chen and the others also smiled and said, "I wish you all success. Bring glory to our Heavenly Saber Pavilion." When the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's first elder, Jiang Qi, saw this scene, he revealed a joyful smile and nodded slightly. Next battle, Kim Taeho vs Ling Feng. On the 15th group's arena, the old judge said in a low voice, "That can't be. This fatso is also participating in the 5-nation youth competition. With his strength, he dares to come without any secret treasures." Lu Suifeng laughed loudly and said, "This fellow, to think that he is not embarrassed to go on stage dressed like that." Xiao Chen's eyes were filled with suspicion as he looked over with interest. He was very interested in how strong Fatso was. "I am the Evil Moon Pavilion's Ling Feng. Please enlighten me." Ling Feng cupped his hands and bowed. Kim Taeho was dressed in jewelry and held a golden folding fan in his right hand. He smiled and said, "The Evil Moon Pavilion is a super large sect. Little brother, how about letting this fat lord make a move or two first? You're extraordinarily handsome and have a mighty aura. You're also a popular contender for the top 10. Furthermore, you're from a super large sect. You can just let this fat lord have a few moves, right?" The disciples of a large sect were all prideful. When Ling Feng heard the other party's flattery, he felt somewhat smug. However, Ling Feng maintained a serious expression. He smiled gently and said, "That's fine. I don't mind letting you make a move or two. Make your move." It was just 2 moves, it would be over very quickly. Ling Feng still had that much confidence. Kim Taeho chuckled and gave Ling Feng a thumbs up. He said, "You are bold. A large sect is indeed a large sect. No wonder you dare to say that you will fight for the top 10. This fat lord is coming." Bang! 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 Fatso's waist was fat and his legs were thick. Even if he did not weigh 200 tons, he weighed at least 178 tons. As he ran, his fat jiggled. The dueling ring did not seem to be able to withstand his weight. Ling Feng found this very comical. He found it funny in his heart. How did such a person clear the first stage? Amidst the comical footsteps, Kim Tae-ho arrived 20 meters before Ling Feng. Like he said, Ling Feng did not show any signs of making a move, allowing Fatso to approach. When Ling Feng was 10 meters away, Kim Tae-ho's speed suddenly increased by 5 or 6 times. He left a fat afterimage in the air, dazzling everyone. Kim Tae-ho put away his folding fan and flipped his right palm. A golden coffin lid appeared in his hands from his spatial ring. Hee hee. Eat this fat lord's coffin lid. Ling Feng felt a sense of danger for some reason. Just as he was about to draw his weapon, the world around him suddenly started spinning. The laws of heaven and earth actually changed. Pa! There was a heavy sound as the coffin lid, which was unknown how heavy, smashed into the Evil Moon Pavilion elite disciple's body. It was unknown how much force Kim Tae-ho used, but after this heavy strike, Ling Feng immediately fell to the ground, unable to get up again. 1 second ago, the crowd was still staring at Kim Tae-ho's comical movement technique. 1 second later, the situation in the dueling ring reversed. Kim Tae-ho put the coffin lid back into his spatial ring. Then, he opened his glittering folding fan with a shio sound. When he started fanning himself, Kim Tae-ho shook his head and sighed, "You are just trash. To think that you dare to say that you will fight for the top 10. The youths these days are getting more and more arrogant. They do not know how to be humble at all." The Evil Moon Pavilion's elders nearly vomited blood when they saw Xiao Chen's serious expression. Those words were clearly said by Fatso. However, when it came out of his mouth, it became the Evil Moon Pavilion disciple being arrogant and ignorant, so he taught him a lesson. Disciples of the Evil Moon Pavilion, if you meet this person again, don't say anything. Just cripple him or beat him to death, the Evil Moon Pavilion's inner sect first elder said angrily. Kim Tae-ho wins. 2 points. The referee of Group 15 was somewhat speechless, but he still announced the results. Kim Tae-ho put away his folding fan and chuckled. Then, he turned his head and waved to the crowd, "Thank you, everyone, for your support. This fat lord will continue fighting. I am the young master of the Golden Rock Merchant Association. If you want to do business in the future, you can come and look for me. I will give you a 20% discount." Before leaving, Kim Tae-ho did not forget to advertise his merchant association. It was as though everything was a matter of course. This fatso's skin is extraordinarily thick. Too shameless. The Evil Moon Pavilion's people are probably crying. The cultivators in the spectator stands all cursed and laughed. They felt that the Evil Moon Pavilion's people did not deserve this. When Xiao Chen saw this scene, he could not help but laugh hoarsely. However, this was indeed Fatso's true colors. If he was not shameless, he would not be Kim Tae-ho. After the matches of Group 6 ended, the referee immediately said, "Next match, Xiao Chen vs Xie. Bai Zhan looked at the eager Xie and said, "Remember what I said. Just move around and test his strength. After that, just take the initiative to admit defeat." Xie was extremely unconvinced. He gave a casual reply and eagerly flew towards the arena. Xie was a genius disciple of the Evil Moon Pavilion, second only to Bai Zhan. He was ranked 47th in the previous 5-nation youth competition. He was considered an expert in Group 6. As for Xiao Chen, he was the rising star of Group 6. He had fought 5 matches in a row and won them all. Furthermore, they were all overwhelming victories. In the eyes of the spectators, the match between the two was a battle between the strong. It attracted the attention of many people. In the wind cloud platform, Xie looked at Xiao Chen with a sullen expression. He said in a cold voice, "Xiao Chen, remember what I said back then. Sooner or later, I will trample on you in front of everyone." Xiao Chen took out the lunar shadow saber from the universe ring and smiled. "I'm afraid I will have to disappoint you." If Xiao Chen continued to use his fists and feet to deal with Xie, he would waste a lot of time. So, he intended to end this match quickly. Hence, he no longer had any thoughts of hiding his strength. There is no point in saying so much. Make your move. You should feel honored that you have successfully forced me to take out the lunar shadow saber. Several cultivators in the spectators' stands were astonished. In the earlier matches, Xiao Qin had only used his fists and feet to deal with his physical body. The strong combat prowess that Xiao Qin displayed was already shocking enough. They did not expect that his fists and feet were only supplementary attacks. His true identity as a bladesman was his true identity. This Xiao Qin really hid his strength very deeply. 2 points are deducted for each defeat in the arena. He is rather courageous. It looks like there will be a newcomer in Group 6 as well. Ha. Let's wait until he defeats Xie Ziwen first. If he loses, he will not be that strong. The cultivators paying attention to Group 6 discussed in soft voices. Unexpectedly, Xiao Qin had hidden his strength. This made the crowd feel even more anticipation for this match. Seeing that Xiao Qin was looking down on him, Xie Ziwen was so angry that he laughed instead. He said, Good. Let's see if you dare to continue being arrogant later. 1,000 flaming palms. Xie Ziwen shouted ferociously. All the fire-attributed spiritual energy in the vast wind cloud platform instantly surged. Sparks leaped around the arena. Xie Ziwen pushed his right palm forward, and the sparks instantly gathered, forming a huge palm with clear lines. It was like a mountain, carrying a boundless might as it pressed down on Xiao Qin. With this move, no one had been able to receive more than 10 moves from Xie Ziwen. This showed how strong this move was. Ka Xie. Xiao Qin drew the lunar shadow saber, and a purple light flickered. The solid flaming palm instantly split in half before turning into countless sparks. Xiao Qin easily broke the 1,000 flaming palms with one saber strike. There was no difficulty at all. Damn it! Xie Ziwen's expression turned slightly unsightly. He had not expected Xiao Qin to break his move so easily. His figure flickered in the air without any pattern. Instantly, many flaming palms filled the air, pressing down on Xiao Qin from all directions. At a glance, the vast wind cloud platform was filled with flaming palms. The scene looked very majestic. Xiao Qin's expression remained calm as he moved through the flaming palms like he was taking a leisurely stroll. As he brandished his saber, it was like a heavenly steed soaring through the air. He attacked casually. The saber moved with his heart, and the person moved with the saber. Like moving clouds and flowing water, he chopped those terrifying flaming palms into sparks. The Group 6 referee's pupils constricted slightly. He thought to himself, what a wondrous state. This fellow's saber technique seemed to have reached the level of heaven's perception. Xiao Qin said indifferently, Xie Ziwen, if this is all you are capable of, then don't come out and embarrass yourself. As you wish. Xie Ziwen's expression sank. He had not expected the martial technique that he had worked so hard to comprehend to be insufficient in the eyes of Xiao Qin, forcing him to use his trump card in advance. Rage of 10,000 flames. Roar. Suddenly, the thousands of flames in the arena trembled intensely. It was like angry cultivators had developed emotions. When the trembling sounds rang out, it gave off the feeling of a fire god shouting. Rage, berserk, dissatisfaction, and various other emotions spread out. Xie Ziwen had actually infused his own emotions into the state of fire. Chapter 571. Ha. Xiao Qin, do you feel my rage? I have to thank you. Without you, I would not have been able to comprehend such a strong martial technique. Rage, my flame. Bang! In an instant, the rage in the crowd reached its peak. Suddenly, a flaming arm appeared on the ground. This arm was 100 meters long. The moment it appeared, it covered half the sky. Xiao Qian's slender body became very small before that flaming arm. He was like an ant that could be smashed to death with one slap. The huge palm carried an overwhelming rage as it smashed down at Xiao Qian at lightning speed. Xiao Qian's expression remained calm. His heart was as calm as still water, without any ripples. The purple crystalline chi whirlpool in his body spun wildly. As the peak state of thunder surged out, the purple crystalline saber chi turned into a purple crystalline saber chi. The long purple crystalline saber chi was as thin as a cicada's wing. It flashed in the air and chopped the arm that came out of the ground in half. The crystalline saber chi did not lose any momentum as it flew towards Xie. There was a loud bang as the saber chi shattered Xie protective essence. Countless bolts of lightning exploded out, blasting Xie beyond recognition. With a pu tong sound, he fell from the sky. Ka Xie. After defeating Xie in one move, Shaochen sheathed his saber. The remnant flames and lightning in the air instantly mixed together and exploded. Purple and red waves of chi enveloped the entire stage with a swoosh. From afar, it looked demonic and beautiful. When the shockwaves scattered and the light disappeared, a calm bladesman stood in the center of the dueling ring. He did not look sad or happy, arrogant or rash. The cool breeze generated by the shockwaves blew at Xiao Chen's clothes, matching Xiao Chen's calm expression. At this moment, Xiao Chen gave off an ethereal and distant aura, appearing carefree and at ease. Xiao Chen wins. You gain another 2 points. The referee of Group 6 suppressed his excitement as he announced the results. A true newcomer had finally appeared in Group 6, it was no longer a trashy group. As the referee, he could at least be a little satisfied. Damn! Is there a mistake? He killed Xie in one move. What exactly is the background of this white-robed bladesman? No matter what, Xie obtained the 49th rank in the previous 5-nation youth competition. Could it be that this person can get into the top 20? From the looks of it, he hasn't used his full strength yet. I wonder how much of his strength he has used. At least 70%. Otherwise, it would be too terrifying. The warriors who had been paying attention to Xiao Chen's match were in an uproar. They had not expected such an ending. In the first half of the match, Xie was still in high spirits. The scale of the match was astonishing. He did not look any worse than Xiao Chen. However, when Xiao Chen became truly enraged, he used one saber strike to instantly defeat Xie, thoroughly shocking everyone. In the spectator stands, the Evil Moon Pavilion elders all had unsightly expressions. First, an elite disciple was toyed with by Kim Tae-ho. Next, Xie, whom they had placed their hopes on, was defeated in one move. As a super sect, such embarrassing things happened one after another. It was a complete slap in the face. Bai Zhan was speechless. This fellow already told him that he was not a match for Xiao Chen, yet he still humiliated himself. When Xiao Chen returned to his spectator stands, Yun Kursen was astonished at the strength that Xiao Chen had displayed. She asked curiously, Xiao Chen, how much strength did you use earlier? Xiao Chen smiled faintly and replied, not even half. Perhaps not even half of half. Yun Kursen could not help but be horrified. Half of half. Doesn't that mean that he did not even use a quarter of his strength? What exactly is Xiao Chen's strength now? In a spectator's stand far away from Xiao Chen, the 3 genius cultivators of the Myriad Fiend Palace had also seen the earlier battle. Bai's bright eyes seemed to twinkle like stars. He smiled happily and said, Elder brother Xiao Chen has become very powerful. Bai, you have to do your best as well. Let's meet in the finals together with elder brother Xiao Chen. Mu Xinya, Jiang Zimo, and Chu Mu shook their heads and smiled bitterly, not saying anything. After they parted in Desolate City, the 3 of them had set Xiao Chen as their target, doing their best to catch up. Now that 2 years had passed, the 3 of them had improved. However, the gap between them and Xiao Chen seemed to be growing larger. It seemed like they would never be able to catch up to that threshold. Once Xiao Chen surpassed them, they would lose the chance to catch up. To be in the same generation as Xiao Chen, setting him as their target was a tragedy. After defeating Xie in one move, Xiao Chen's popularity soared. In the next 3 matches, his opponents chose to forfeit. After all, there were 20 matches, one after another. If one knew that they would lose to Xiao Chen, yet they still risked getting injured, it would be unwise. Obviously, this was extremely unwise. The most important thing was to conserve his strength and prepare for the next battle. After Xiao Chen sat down, Lu Suifeng, who had been watching the matches, immediately said to Xiao Chen, "A genius bladesman appeared in Group 10. He is very powerful." Compared to Xiao Chen, Lu Suifeng and the others were much more relaxed. They could watch the matches more freely. They could be considered as scouts, helping Xiao Chen to see which geniuses he needed to pay attention to. A genius in the saber. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion was famous for the saber. Under the influence of Lu Suifeng's eyes and ears, he naturally had a good eye for bladesmen. A bladesman that caught his eye and was referred to as a genius would definitely not be weak. Since the group stages started, Xiao Chen had seen many genius swordsmen. However, geniuses in the saber category were rare. Xiao Chen asked interestedly, "Is he a disciple of the Divine Saber Gate, one of the 10 great sects?" Of the 10 great sects, the Divine Saber Gate was famous for its saber techniques. In terms of saber techniques, they were several times more accomplished than the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Lu Suifeng shook his head and said, "No." Somewhat surprised, Xiao Chen said, "Then, he is a disciple of the Bai clan." The Bai clan was also famous for its saber techniques. Their ancestor, Bai Shuehe, was a saber emperor. The 4-season saber technique was known as the saber technique closest to heaven-ranked martial techniques. Although heaven-ranked martial techniques were strong, under normal circumstances, one had to be a martial monarch before they could practice them. Given this, the strength of the 4-season saber technique became obvious among a large group of half-step martial monarchs. It was clearly an earth-ranked martial technique, but it had the might of a heaven-ranked martial technique. This was like a cheat. This was also why Bai Qi dared to challenge Sima Lingxian back then. It was not strange for a noble clan of saber techniques to have a few geniuses weaker than Bai Zhan. However, Lu Suifeng still shook his head and said, "That's not it either. This fellow is called Lin Fei. He does not belong to any sect. His saber techniques are very exquisite. The strength he shows is only that of a superior grade martial king. However, when he brings out his combat prowess, even a half-step martial monarch would not be a match for him. He is going up again. He has already won 10 matches in a row. I wonder if he can continue." Mu Qian, who was at the side, said. "Lin Fei does not belong to any sect. He is not a disciple of the Divine Saber Gate or a disciple of the Bai clan. There are many newcomers in this 5-nation youth competition." Xiao Chen could not help but look into the distance. He saw 2 youths already standing on the dueling ring for Group 10. One of them wore embroidered clothes with 2 crossed sabers embroidered on his chest. Xiao Chen knew that was the symbol of the Divine Saber Gate. The other person wore azure clothes and held a saber about 1 meter long and 2 fingers wide. He looked very ordinary, looking very ordinary. His eyes were hidden, like a silent volcano. A horrifying aura seemed like it would erupt at any moment. This azure-robed man should be the Lin Fei that Lu Suifeng mentioned. There are not many experts in Group 10. However, Lin Fei's winning streak might come to an end. His opponent is the elite disciple of the Divine Saber Gate, Ma Yuan, who was ranked 39th in the previous 5-nation youth competition. Furthermore, they are both bladesmen. They know each other very well. The situation is not good. The most important thing is that they are from a large sect. The martial techniques and cultivation techniques they practice are not weak. They are completely different from the other opponents. Clearly, Lin Fei was very popular. Before the duel started, many of the cultivators near Xiao Chen started discussing him. Ma Yuan held a slender scarlet saber in his hand. He looked at Lin Fei and said, "Sorry, I will be the one to end your winning streak." Lin Fei smiled and said, "Where does your confidence come from? Make your move. Let me see how many strikes the elite disciple of the Divine Saber Gate can take." "A nameless brat, how dare you be so arrogant?" Ma Yuan shouted ferociously, and his aura exploded out. The wrist that he used to hold his saber trembled, and a scarlet killing chi immediately spread out from his body. Traceless blood shadow. The moment Ma Yuan made his move, he did not intend to hold back. He immediately used the starting stance of the superior grade earth-ranked saber technique of the divine saber gate, the blood shadow saber technique. Instantly, scarlet saber lights flew out from the saber. As they scattered, the entire place was filled with scarlet lights. The silhouette contained sharp killing intent. Every strand of killing intent was firmly locked onto Lin Fei, not giving him much chance to dodge. Lu Suifeng sighed and said, "The disciples of a large sect are really good. The moment they start, they use an earth-ranked saber technique. Look at the state and wonders of this saber technique. It is not something an ordinary saber technique can compare to." Shaoqun agreed with Lu Suifeng's words. For the blood shadow saber technique, the blood represented killing chi, and the shadows represented nimble and formless trajectories. This was just the starting stance, and it already caused the killing intent to scatter like snowflakes. This Ma Yuan was indeed quite capable. However, whether he could obtain victory or not depended on how deep his understanding of the state of the blood shadow saber technique was. A large sect was good. They could give you martial techniques that ordinary people would find hard to obtain. However, how much you could bring out depended on your talent. Lin Fei was expressionless. However, at this moment, his originally lifeless eyes became lively. He quickly swept his gaze over the blood shadow saber light and Ma Yuan. After that, Lin Fei quickly made a decision in his heart. He revealed a cold smile and drew his saber with a xiu sound. In the blink of an eye, Lin Fei sent out 10 saber strikes. The sharp saber chi were like arrows, unblockable. They all struck the weakest part of the blood shadow saber chi. Clanging sounds resounded and the blood shadows filling the air were all shattered by Lin Fei. The starting stance of the blood shadow saber technique was broken just like that. Shaoqun said, "Ma Yuan is going to lose." Mu Chen and the others felt it was strange. This was just the beginning. Why did Shaoqun say that Ma Yuan was going to lose? Ma Yuan appeared somewhat dispirited. The blood shadow saber technique had just started. It had not even had time to display its might. How could it be broken so quickly? How was he going to continue fighting? Chapter 572. However, Lin Fei did not give Ma Yuan any time to hesitate. Suddenly, a sharp saber chi shot out from under his feet. He followed this saber chi and arrived before Ma Yuan in an instant. Dang! At the critical moment, Ma Yuan finally reacted. He grasped his saber with both hands and blocked his opponent's attack. When the weapons clashed, sparks flew. Bang! However, just at this moment, another strand of sharp saber chi shot out from under Lin Fei's feet. His body instantly floated into the air. That strand of saber chi was incredibly sharp. It came from below and came from a strange angle. Even with Ma Yuan's rich combat experience, he was flustered and caught off guard. Again. Ma Yuan had just retreated when Lin Fei, who was floating in the air, waited for a long time. He landed beside Ma Yuan and hacked down with his 1-meter-long saber with a strong aura. The strand of saber chi that came from under Lin Fei's feet appeared almost at the same time as the saber strike. Furthermore, this attack came from the side of Ma Yuan. Ma Yuan tried to catch the saber strike, but the saber chi that shot out brushed past him. A bloody hole appeared in his chest, and blood flowed out. Dang! 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 After losing in one move, Ma Yuan lost the entire match. Lin Fei did not show mercy, not giving Ma Yuan any chance to counterattack. After 6 moves, 7 bloody holes appeared in Ma Yuan's chest. His clothes were dyed red with blood, and his complexion paled. Seeing that Lin Fei was about to descend again, Ma Yuan said unwillingly, "I admit defeat." Lin Fei, who was in the air, instantly withdrew his move. He somersaulted once in the air before gently landing on the ground. Lin Fei had defeated his opponent in 7 moves. Furthermore, he was not injured at all. Ma Yuan had not even managed to touch the corner of his clothes. The new generation replaces the old. However, this newcomer rose up too quickly. The old generation died on the beach. Indeed. After all, he was ranked 39th in the previous 5-nation youth competition. In the end, he did not even manage to touch the corner of Lin Fei's clothes. This newcomer is too horrifying. This unexpected result caused the cultivators in the spectator stands to sigh after a long silence. Ha ha. This is still good. You did not watch the matches of the 20th group. The Eastern Sea's Little Dragon King, Xianyuan Zhantian, defeated his opponent in 1 move every time. Quite a few experts from the previous tournament didn't believe it. In the end, there were no surprises. No matter where you came from, the power of your halberd is unstoppable. There are too many new talents this year. It's the same for Group 1. There's a young lady from the Myriad Demon Palace. She's definitely not more than 16 years old. But he actually won more than 10 rounds in a row before losing to a direct disciple of one of the 10 great sections. It looks like the age of geniuses is real. The second elimination round will begin the day after tomorrow. After the seeded participants participate, the competition will probably be even more intense. Lu Suifeng secretly clicked his tongue. What a strange saber technique. How is one supposed to block it? There is one move on the surface and another hidden move. I have never heard of such a martial technique before. Could it be that he created it himself? Yun Kursen looked at Xiao Chen and said, Xiao Chen, what are your chances of victory against him? Xiao Chen pondered for a moment and said, this person is very strong. If it's just the strength he has shown, I have a 100% chance of winning against him. Murong Chong said in astonishment, could it be that you have a way to deal with that strange saber technique? Xiao Chen did not answer this question directly. He said, winning by surprise is very difficult. If he holds on to the idea of conquering the world with just a set of saber techniques, it will be very difficult for him to enter the top 50 of the ranking battles. As they spoke, it was soon time for Xiao Chen's match. This time, his opponent was a short-haired cultivator holding a spear. He was about the same age as Xiao Chen. However, his face looked very lethargic. The short-haired cultivator did not seem very confident. He looked at Xiao Chen and said, Xiao Chen, if you can receive 1 move from me, I will admit defeat. Xiao Chen said calmly, I do not need you to admit defeat. If you want to use your best move, you have to do your best to create an opportunity. Don't beg for an opponent. If I agree, will you use the same move every time you meet an opponent stronger than you? Xiao Chen did not like such cowardice before a fight. If he wanted to force his opponent to fight him in 1 move, he needed to use an equal amount of strength and capital. If he relied on begging to obtain this opportunity, his mentality would be unstable from the start. The short-haired cultivator did not expect Xiao Chen to reject him so straightforwardly. He clenched his teeth and said, watch out for the spear. The spear spun around, and the surrounding air stirred up a strong wind, gathering at the tip of the spear. The short-haired cultivator's right hand trembled, and the spear moved like a venomous snake coming out of its hole, biting at Xiao Chen. When the spear arrived in front of Xiao Chen, the spear tip shook violently a few times. It seemed like there were a few more venomous snakes coming out of their holes, making it hard to distinguish the real from the fake. Xiao Chen shook his head slightly. The opening was too obvious. If the other party did not change his move, he could have just thrust his spear. The aura, speed, and state of the spear could be said to be perfect. Unfortunately, he insisted on playing with technique, and the state of the spear crumbled. Against a cultivator with better eyesight and techniques than him, this spear strike was laughable. Xiao Chen clenched his fist and punched. Berserk Dragon. An azure dragon-shaped energy spread out in front of his fist. Xiao Chen's fist clashed with one of the spear lights. Bang! There was a loud sound, and the fake and real spear lights all disappeared. The short-haired cultivator held the spear in his hand and retreated a few steps back. Xiaochen placed his right hand on his saber hilt and ran quickly. In the blink of an eye, he arrived before his opponent. Before his opponent could react, Xiaochen drew his saber and knocked the spear out of his opponent's hand. Then, he moved his right hand and placed his saber on his opponent's neck. "You lost," Xiaochen said calmly. The short-haired cultivator was clearly dissatisfied. He said, "I still have not used my trump card. As long as you give me 2 seconds, I will definitely be able to turn the situation around. If you do not even have the chance to execute it, how can it be called a trump card? Don't be stubborn. Improving your foundation is the most important thing. Otherwise, any trump card is just empty talk." Xiaochen sheathed his saber and did not say anything more. He had already said this much. Whether he could comprehend it or not would depend on himself. The short-haired cultivator had a blank expression on his face. He kept thinking about Xiaochen's words in his mind. There would always be a time when the 20 rounds of competition came to an end. When the sun set, Xiaochen's group of 6 had all finished their matches. He had obtained a perfect score without any losses. After waiting for a while, Yun Kersen and Murong Chong also finished their matches. Yun Kersen's luck was good, and she managed to break through. Murong Chong's luck did not continue to be bad. He managed to qualify for the group of death with some difficulty. The first elder, Jiang Qi, had an excited expression on his face. The great Qin nation's Misty Sword sect only had one person left, Chu Chaoyun. However, the Night Spirit Palace's Mu Qingxue had fallen in the first round. In terms of numbers, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had completely suppressed the other 2 great sections. If they advertised it properly in the future, it would greatly increase the influence of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. "Let's go, we can go back first. We will rest tomorrow and prepare for the elimination round the day after tomorrow," Jiang Qi said as he stood up. Xiaochen looked at the dueling ring and said, "Wait for a while. The match between Nangong Ziyue and the Sun Moon Sword Sect's Mo Zian is about to begin." In a situation where the seated participants had not appeared, it would be very difficult for a match to attract Xiaochen's attention. Lin Fei's earlier match was one. Now, Nangong Ziyue and Mo Zian's match was another. There was no need to say much about Nangong Ziyue. She came from one of the 8 noble clans and was ranked in the top 8 of the previous 5-nation youth competition. She was one of the hot favorites for the top 5 this time around. Nangong Ziyue should not have appeared here. Unfortunately, her seated spot was taken by Yu Chenxi. Mo Zian was the personal disciple of the Sun Moon Sword sect, one of the 10 great sections. He was ranked 11th in the previous 5-nation youth competition. Although he did not get into the top 10, he was just unlucky. Mo Zian's true combat prowess was publicly acknowledged to be no weaker than the top 10. Hence, this match was definitely a match of the strong in everyone's eyes. At this moment, most of the matches had already ended. However, no one left the spectator stands. They were all waiting for the match between the 2. Mo Zian had a sword hanging at his waist. He had a long and narrow face. Such a person should give off the impression of a treacherous and vile person. However, Mo Zian exuded a righteous aura. He was so broad-minded that he could swallow the sun and the moon. No one could feel that kind of negative aura. "Nangong Ziyue, how do you feel after being forced out of your seated spot?" Mo Zian asked with a gentle smile. Nangong Ziyue replied calmly, "Just take care of yourself. Be careful not to lose to me again." Mo Zian said, "Receive my move. If I cannot defeat you in 10 moves, I will forfeit." As Mo Zian spoke, he displayed strong confidence. Ka Xie. The sword was drawn. It was 1 meter long and 2 centimeters wide. It flickered with a cold light and emitted a sharp light. Sword chi flowed out of it. This was a superior grade heaven-ranked spirit weapon. It was incredibly sharp. Pooh! Pooh! Mo Zian leaped into the air. The instant he soared into the air, the night sky blocked out the afterglow of the setting sun. A bright moon hung high in the sky. As Mo Xian's sword moved, a poignant moonlight shone on Nangong Ziyue, who was on the ground. Under the moonlight, Mo Xian looked very graceful and at ease. This sword seemed to have flown over from beyond the heavens. It gave off the illusion of space. Mo Xian seemed to be very close to Nangong Ziyue, but at the same time, it seemed like he was very far away. So close, yet worlds apart, boundless moonlight pulling together. Using the moonlight to simulate the state of world's end near at hand, whether he was at the end of the world or close at hand was decided by a single thought, and the outcome would be decided immediately. In the spectator stands for the seated contestants, Sima Lingxian, who had a very casual expression, was attracted by this state. He praised softly, "Not bad. Mo Xian has already grasped the essence of the sun-moon sword sex state of bright moon. If he can bring his state of blazing sun to this level, he will be qualified to fight with Nangong Ziyue. If he can use the state of sun and moon as he pleases, he will have a 70% chance of entering the top 10. Even Sima Lingxian gave such a high evaluation. It was easy to imagine how incredible Mo Xian's sword was. This is the true strength of the top 10 contestants. Indeed, they are on a completely different level from the other contestants. They will only reveal some of their true strength when facing people of the same level as them. They are all geniuses, but the gap between them is like an insurmountable chasm. I wonder how Nangong Ziyue will block this. This match should be the match of the highest quality in the first round of elimination. Mo Xian's casual sword strike immediately caused the large spectator stands to be filled with astonishment. As the saying went, when an expert made a move, it was easy to tell. A peak genius was indeed not someone that ordinary people could match up to. A gap was a gap. Chapter 573. Xianyuan Zhantian, who had already finished his match, looked at this duel. He revealed a smile and said, "What an interesting state. I wonder how that girl will deal with this. So close yet worlds apart." Whether Nangong Ziyue was at the other end of the world or close to her depended on her judgment. If Nangong Ziyue judged that her opponent was at the other end of the world, she should focus on storing up energy to receive the sharp sword strike from her opponent at the other end of the world. If Nangong Ziyue judged that her opponent was at the other end of the world, she should attack quickly. Because the distance was close, her opponent would definitely attack very quickly, not giving her time to react. The night sky was turned upside down, the moonlight was like water, shining brightly and sprinkling down. Mo Xian's sword descended from the sky, filling the sky with light. Where was he? Was he at the other end of the world or close to her? Although all of this took a long time to describe, everything happened in an instant. Nangong Ziyue had to make a decision in an extremely short amount of time. Otherwise, she would have been defeated by that one strike. Suddenly, Nangong Ziyue moved. She took a step forward with her right foot and slowly made a strange gesture with her left and right hands. It was like she was activating some strange martial technique. Nangong Ziyue did not store up energy or attack quickly. Everyone could not help but feel suspicious about what she was doing. Splash! Suddenly, the melodious sound of flowing water rang out. At some point in time, tall mountains and flowing lakes appeared around Nangong Ziyue. Nangong Ziyue stood in the middle of the lake. The mountains moved in the water and she drifted among the mountains and rivers. Was it the mountains moving or the water flowing? Or was it the otherworldly girl in the mountains and rivers swaying? No one could tell what was happening. If you are at the other end of the world, I will flow with the waves. If you are close to me, I will be as unmoving as a mountain. If you are at the other end of the world, I will flow with the waves. If you are close to me, I will be as unmoving as a mountain. If you have the boundless moonlight, I will be as unmoving as a mountain. If you want me to be as unmoving as a mountain, I will be as unmoving as a mountain. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but praise, what a beautiful concept of mountains and rivers, turning the passive into the active in an instant. Is this the strength of the 8 aristocratic families? In the seated contestants' spectator stands, the 10 seated contestants all revealed expressions of admiration. The Baiming clan's scion, Baiming Shang, smiled gently and said, "I have long heard that the Nangong clan has an ancient book called the Mountain and River Scripture. It looks like Nangong Ziyue comprehended a part of it." She, who is fighting for the seated spot, probably did not use her full power. As he spoke, he purposely glanced at the Haotian sect's Yu Chenxi, the woman who pushed Nangong Ziyue out. Yu Chenxi smiled faintly and ignored Baiming Shang's words. If Nangong Ziyue did not use her full strength, how could she do the same? Clang clang. Suddenly, a clear sword hum rang out in the dueling ring. Mo Zian's sword had finally arrived before Nangong Ziyue. Nangong Ziyue smiled faintly and pushed her palms forward. It seemed like she had the power to change the world. The surrounding tall mountains started moving quickly. No, it was not the mountains that moved, but the water that flowed too fast. The crowd used Nangong Ziyue, who was drifting with the water, as a reference. They had the misconception that the tall mountains were moving. "You came from the ends of the earth. I will drift with the water, moving 1,000 kilometers away." In the dueling ring, Nangong Ziyue's curvaceous body quickly retreated. No matter how fast Mo Zian's sword was or how strong it was, it always stopped 1 centimeter in front of her, unable to advance any further. A resonant sword hum rang out, and a strong sword intent spread out. It passed through the wind-cloud barrier and spread to the spectator stands. The swords of several swordsmen could not help but hum. With the support of the moonlight, the might of the small perfection sword intent more than doubled. After attacking for a long time without success, Missouri Zian quickly changed his move. He held his sword with one hand and used both hands. Then, he swung his sword downwards. Raging fire burns the mountain. The night disappeared, and the bright moon disappeared. The blazing sun shone in the sky. Unexpectedly, Mo Zian had changed his state in a short instant. The gentle moonlight turned into the strong and unyielding light of the blazing sun, encasing Nangong Ziyue and forcing her to clash head-on. Shio! Nangong Ziyue suddenly stopped. In that instant, the mountains stopped moving, the water stopped flowing, the tall mountains remained silent, and the waves remained calm. This showed Nangong Ziyue's control of her state to the finest detail. Using the mountains as the momentum and the lake as the intent, she did not fear clashing head-on with her opponent. She sent out a punch. Boom! The fist and the sword clashed head-on. An intense explosion resounded in the dueling ring. An unending shockwave spread out in all directions. Visible ripples appeared on the wind-cloud barrier. Clearly, it suffered from an intense impact. If it were not for the barrier, the shockwave would have affected some of the cultivators in the spectator stands who were closer to Shaoqin. How strong! Are all the peak geniuses of the younger generation this strong? It looks like they are no weaker than ordinary inferior-grade martial monarchs. Compared to them, those rising stars are undoubtedly a little lacking in terms of aura. The crowd in the spectator stands was astonished. Clearly, they had not expected the clash between the two to have such a huge impact. The genius Saber Lin Fei looked at the two of them. A fervent light flashed in his eyes as he muttered, "Master was right. There are countless geniuses in the five-nation youth competition. I have indeed underestimated these people in the past." Bang! There was another intense explosion. The blazing sun in the sky that Mo Zian's state had turned into shattered into countless sparks. The sky turned dark once more. The setting sun in the distance shone its golden light on the dueling ring once more. However, the lake under Nangong Ziyue's feet only rippled for a while before no more waves appeared. The mountain was still the same mountain, and the lake was still the same lake. It was clear which was stronger between the fist and the sword. The pale Mo Zian fell to the ground. Clearly, he was not satisfied. He gently patted the dueling ring and soared into the air, charging at Nangong Ziyue again. Shio! 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 A sharp sword light swept through the place like a sharp wind blade. As the sun and moon alternated, Mo Xian's aura changed unpredictably. His sword moves were also unpredictable. Nangong Ziyue did not panic. She walked between the mountains and rivers and casually sent out fist winds. She used the might of the mountains and the state of the flowing water to break Mo Xian's sword moves. Feng Yuan, the scion of the Feng clan, who was famous for their movement techniques of the 8 noble clans, looked at the situation and said, "The state of mountains and rivers is indeed strong. I'm afraid Mo Xian will not be able to wait until Nangong Ziyue is at the end of her rope." Bai Qi smiled and said, "Why wait until she is at the end of her rope? If he is really capable, he can split the mountain and cut the water. When the 1,000 mountains are broken, the 10,000 rivers will not flow. Naturally, Nangong Ziyue will lose. Unfortunately, Mo Xian does not have such an ability." Sima Lingxian remained silent. He agreed with Bai Qi's opinion in his heart. Although Nangong Ziyue was strong, if that was all, she would not be a match for them. Immortal mountains and rivers. Nangong Ziyue shouted and did not intend to continue fighting. A pillar of water shot up into the sky from the lake behind her. Then, she punched with both fists, carrying the might of the immortal mountains and rivers. One fist was the mountain, the other the water. The mountains and rivers are immortal, only I exist. A tyrannical aura spread out from Nangong Ziyue's body. Bang! The boundless sword move that Mo Xian materialized as the sun and moon alternated vanished before this pair of fists. He vomited 2 mouthfuls of blood and crashed into the wind-cloud barrier, losing the ability to continue fighting. Nangong Ziyue withdrew her fists and stood upright. The mountain was no longer there and the water was no longer there. Only a cool breeze remained in the wind-cloud barrier. All the cultivators in the vast spectator stands remained silent. That tyrannical punch had left a deep impression on them. It was hard to imagine that such a pretty girl could deliver such a tyrannical punch. The final match of the first day of the competition did not disappoint the crowd. Mo Xian and Nangong Ziyue were worthy of everyone's weight. Nangong Ziyue looked at the seated contestants' seats and swept her gaze across Yu Chenxi's face. Then, she gently floated down from the wind-cloud platform. Everyone understood the gaze that flew over. During the preliminaries, Nangong Ziyue, who did not want to reveal her strength, had lost in the fight for the dragon pillar and was forced to give up her seated spot. However, this did not mean that she was inferior to Yu Chenxi. Nangong Ziyue was issuing a challenge to Yu Chenxi, wanting to take revenge for him snatching away her seated spot. After tomorrow, the immortal mountains and rivers fist would face the peak Great Perfection Morning Sun fist. What kind of shocking battle would that be? Between Yu Chenxi and Nangong Ziyue, who was stronger? Everyone was filled with anticipation. After the match between Mo Xian and Nangong Ziyue ended, there were still a few matches left. However, they were not any outstanding matches. They were negligible. Most of the cultivators stood up and headed out. They formed groups of 3 to 5 and discussed the matches today in soft voices. They all had excited expressions on their faces. The quality of this 5-nation youth competition was much better than the previous 5-nation youth competition. The newcomers that appeared were also not comparable to the previous 5-nation youth competition. Several veteran experts, like Xie Ziwen, who was ranked 47th, and Ma Yuan, who was ranked 39th, were eliminated on the first day. This was a huge surprise to everyone. Even before the seeded contestants appeared, the first day's matches were already very exciting. Everyone could not help but be filled with anticipation for the matches the day after tomorrow. When the 9 seeded contestants appeared, the already intense elimination round would become even more intense. The newcomers who were still hiding their strength would no longer be able to do so. Everyone was filled with anticipation. Whether Xianyuan Zhantian, Lin Fei, Xiao Chen, and Chu Chaoyun could last until the end was something everyone was looking forward to. Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze and prepared to leave with the first elder, Jiang Qi, and the others. Ha ha! Little brother Xiao Chen, it has been a long time. Just at this moment, a familiar laugh rang out. When everyone looked back, they saw a richly jeweled Kim Tae-ho waving his folding fan as he dragged his fat body over. Jiang Qi and the others were not familiar with Kim Tae-ho, so they just greeted him and left first. Xiao Chen looked at Kim Tae-ho and smiled faintly. Unexpectedly, with your body, you dare to participate in the five-nation youth competition. Furthermore, you managed to pass the first elimination round. Kim Tae-ho chuckled and waved his hand. It is just a small matter. It is just the first elimination round. Wait for this fat lord to get into the top 10 before you get shocked. Work hard. Let us two brothers fight for the finals. Chapter 574. Xiao Chen was flabbergasted. He said, "Cut the crap. Do you think I do not know what you are capable of? What are you planning this time?" Fatso smiled and said, "I am here to discuss business and to get into the top 10 for fun." Fatso waved his golden folding fan. He spoke very casually, not unnatural at all. Elder brother Xiao Chen. While the two of them were chatting, another crisp and pleasant voice rang out. A fragrant wind blew over, causing one to feel refreshed and intoxicated. Xiao Chen turned his head to look. Before he could react, a soft body threw itself into his embrace and hugged him tightly. The young girl's breasts pressed tightly against Xiao Chen's chest. Jiang Zimo and Chu Mu, who followed behind, revealed envious expressions. Xiao Chen felt somewhat embarrassed. He placed Bai on the ground and said joyfully, "Bai, why are you here?" Xiao Chen was indeed pleasantly surprised. He had not expected to meet Bai again. In reality, Bai's dueling ring happened to be in a blind spot of Xiao Chen's seat. There were also several dueling rings in between. If one did not pay special attention, one would not notice the other party. After all, 20 dueling rings were too many. Bai said seriously, "I am here to participate. I want to prove to elder brother Xiao Chen that Bai has the ability to protect herself now." Earlier, Xiao Chen had heard the cultivators nearby talking about a genius young girl appearing in the Myriad Fiend Palace. She had won several matches in a row. He had not expected that person to be Bai. "Bai, you and this fat lord have not seen each other for a long time. Come, give me a hug," Kim Tae-ho said to Bai with a smile. Bai shook her head and said, "I am not letting you hug me. Bai will only let elder brother Xiao Chen hug me. Brother Xiao, it has been a long time." Just at this moment, another voice rang out. Two handsome cultivators with different auras walked over. It was the Great Chu Nation's Heavenly Sword Gates Ding Feng Chou and the Great Tang Nation's Beast Taming Abode Suemo. They were old friends from Desolate City. After parting that day, they officially reunited today. Jiang Zimo smiled and said, "Congratulations to Brother Zhua and Brother Ding for passing the first elimination round." Zuaimo laughed and said, "Not worth mentioning. Didn't you all pass? It's been almost 2 years since we last met in Barren City. Let's find a place to drink tomorrow." Indeed, close to 2 years had passed in the blink of an eye. The scenes of Desolate City from that day were still vivid in their minds, as if they were still right before their eyes. When they met at the Great Jin Nation's Wind Cloud platform, Xiao Chen's heroic words from back then still rang in his ears. Fatso immediately said, "Alcohol is not good, let's drink tea. Come to the cities don't know about tea at noon tomorrow. It's my treat. Hee, this is not an ordinary tea house. The tea leaves inside are all plucked from spirit trees that are over 1,000 years old and processed with a secret technique. They have all kinds of healing effects. Normally, you can't buy them even if you have money." Don't know about tea was indeed very mysterious. It was the largest tea house in Dragon Sealing City, the only one in the world. For the next 3 years, this tea house would only be open for a few days during the five-nation youth competition. After that, it would not be open again. The craftsmen in the tea house still retained all sorts of ancient tea arts. From the tea set to the tea leaves and the tea, to the tea master, everything in the tea house was the best of the best. To people who loved tea, this was their holy land. Indeed, the moment Fatso said this, everyone's eyes lit up. Several of the tea leaves in Don't Know About Tea were ridiculously expensive. With Fatso treating, everyone naturally felt happy. Xiaochen smiled and said, "It is settled, then. We will meet again at noon tomorrow. Goodbye." After not seeing each other for more than a year, Xiaochen also felt like reuniting with his old friends. Chatting about their comprehensions of the martial way, their encounters, and the upcoming five-nation youth competition were all wonderful things to do. After the few of them said their goodbyes, Bai said reluctantly, "Elder brother Xiaochen, don't forget our promise from back then. Bai will definitely become stronger." Fatso clicked his tongue and said, "After not seeing her for 2 years, this girl has become even more beautiful. I really did not expect a martial fanatic like you to have such luck with women." Xiaochen smiled bitterly. Sometimes, having too much luck with women was not something he could bear. Xiaochen already had Lu Ryue. He only had a sibling relationship with Bai. How to deal with this relationship gave him a headache. Early the next morning, Xiaochen went out on time. The cultivators on the streets of Dragon Sealing City were all discussing yesterday's competition in groups of 2 or 3. There were even some people selling the information of some popular contestants. Xiaochen found it interesting, so he casually bought a list that many people were buying. This was a list of the 10 newcomers. It introduced the 10 newcomers who had performed exceptionally well in yesterday's competition. Xiaochen looked at Xianyuan Zhantian with interest. There was a detailed account of Xianyuan Zhantian's experiences in the Eastern Sea. There were also some comments on his performance in the competition. Xianyuan Zhantian was known as the Eastern Sea's Little Dragon King. He became famous at a young age. At the age of 10, he displayed startling talent and was taken in as the final disciple of the Divine Dragon Palace's Dragon King. At the age of 13, the Dragon King officially announced that he would be the next Dragon King of the Eastern Boundless Sea. From then on, the title of Little Dragon King spread like wildfire. In the elimination round, no one could block a single move from Xianyuan Zhantian. Many people guessed that only Sima Lingxian would be able to fight him. The comments were rather interesting. Xiaochen continued reading. The second ranked was the genius bladesman Lin Fei. The evaluation for him was also very high. Lin Fei defeated the veteran bladesman Ma Yuan, who was also a bladesman, in 7 moves. His strange saber techniques were unfathomable. His opponent did not even manage to touch the corner of his clothes. He was fully deserving of being the second-ranked newcomer. The third-ranked was Chu Chaoyun. The evaluation for him was very strange. Chu Chaoyun did not have an easy time winning every match. However, in Group 13, which had several veteran experts, Chu Chaoyun still managed to obtain complete victories. The fourth ranked was Bai. The evaluation for her was that she was a young genius. She was only 15 years old, but she defeated several veteran experts. Furthermore, she had the heart of a swordsman that all swordsmen dreamed of. Her future was unfathomable. The fifth ranked was Lu Xiaoyun's junior brother, Han Yaotian. Xiaochen was not familiar with him. After a cursory glance, he skipped over his name. Unexpectedly, he saw Kim Taeho's name in the 7th rank. Xiaochen could not help but laugh hoarsely. It was hard to imagine that Fatso would make it onto the list as well. Slowly, Xiaochen looked down and saw his own name in the 9th rank. The evaluation for his strength was also very strong. This person's title was the White-Robed Bladesman. His strength was unfathomable. However, because there were no experts in Group 7, his complete victories were too exaggerated. Hence, he could only be ranked 7th. Xiaochen put away the name list and smiled. I wonder who compiled this name list. Although it is not very complete, there are not many discrepancies. As for his ranking in the 9th rank, Xiaochen did not think much of it. He only cared about defeating the opponents in front of him. Ignorant about tea meant that he did not understand tea. It was very strange for a tea house to have such a name. If he did not understand tea, then why did he open a tea house? Most tea houses would have many troublemakers because of this name. However, in Dragon Sealing City, this famous tea house had such a name. It could only be said that the owner of the tea house was being modest and sighing at himself. The way of tea was the same as the martial way. The higher one went, the more one would discover how insignificant and inadequate one was. The reverence one would feel for the way of tea would increase. As Xiaoqin stood in front of the entrance of the ignorant about tea building, he looked at the 3 words written on the signboard. He entered deep thought and gained some comprehension. Even the top tea house of the continent only dared to use the words, ignorant about tea. As of now, Xiaoqin had not even officially reached a higher level in the martial way. Hence, he needed a humble and reverent heart. Little brother Xiaoqin, look here. Xiaoqin looked up and saw Kim Taeho greeting him with a smile at the railing on the 3rd floor. Xiaoqin pushed off with his feet and soared into the air. Then, he landed beside Kim Taeho. There was a tea set on a small and exquisite table. There was also a name list on the table in front of Kim Taeho. Ding! Ding! Dong! Dong! There was the clear sound of flowing water in the ancient tea house. When one stood there, one could feel a sense of peace and tranquility. After Xiaoqin sat down, a pretty white-clad maidservant immediately came over. Following the ancient tea craftsmanship, she poured a cup of tea for Xiaoqin. Steam came from the teacup, and a faint fragrance spread out. It immediately refreshed one's mind and made one feel refreshed. Kim Taeho smiled and said, "This is 1,000-year-old Menjur tea. It was brewed using a secret method and added in many spirit herbs that have special effects on cultivators. Try it, it might have an unexpected effect." Xiaoqin smiled gently. What Xiaoqin said made him curious. So, he picked up the teacup and took a sip. The tea circled around in his mouth and slowly slid down his throat. However, before it could flow down, the tea turned into gas and permeated his internal organs, skin, blood, and marrow. Xiaoqin's entire body felt numb. The gas from the Menjur tea carefully sorted out all the hidden injuries that he had suffered in the fierce battle in the deep sea. Xiaoqin rejoiced and quickly closed his eyes. As the medicinal energy in the tea spread out, he slowly circulated his energy and doubled the effect. After a long time, Xiaoqin opened his eyes and spat out a mouthful of turbid qi. He felt his body lighten significantly and more nimble. Xiaoqin picked up the teacup and took another sip. However, the effect from earlier was no longer there. Only the fragrance of the tea lingered in his mouth. Kim Taeho chuckled and said, "It is only effective the first time. This cup of tea costs 10,000 superior grade spirit stones. Furthermore, there is no market for it. Only 20 cups are sold every day." Xiaoqin was astonished. This tea was not something that ordinary people could drink. Xiaoqin had a whole new level of respect for Fatso. Unexpectedly, he had become so generous. Kim Taeho waved his hand and said, "We are all friends. Don't look at me like that. It is just a cup of tea. This fat lord can still afford it." The two chatted casually for a while. After a while, Jiang Zimo, Bai, Ding Fengqiu, and the others arrived one after another. Without exception, they all held a rookie register. After they sat down, the first topic they discussed was the rookie register. Zuoimo smiled and said, "The rookie register will appear on the second day of every 5-nation youth competition. It is officially announced by the city lord's residence. It is rather authoritative. I believe that all the cultivators in the city have a copy of it." Kim Taeho nodded and said, "This is something that the city lord's residence created to expand the influence of the 5-nation youth competition. After the finals are over, there will be a complete ranking list." Hee hee. You can imagine it. There are more than 2 million cultivators in Dragon Sealing City from all over the continent. Everyone has a rookie register. When they return, they spread it everywhere. It would be hard for the cultivators on the ranking not to become famous. Chapter 575. Become famous. These words immediately appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. There was no cultivator in the world who did not love these words. Fame might sound tacky, but when cultivators struggled for their entire lives, they only pursued these two words. Even Xiao Chen could not avoid being tacky. The so-called difference was actually their attitude toward fame. Bai giggled and said, I am ranked 4th, 5 ranks higher than elder brother Xiao Chen. Elder brother Xiao Chen, please don't say that Bai is weak in the future. This girl still remembered what I said. Xiao Chen smiled and said, I won't say it. I won't say it. I definitely won't say it. Ding Fengqiu said sullenly, almost all the cultivators in the hall on the first floor are talking about the True Dragon ranking list. However, in the end, this is just the True Dragon ranking list for newcomers. Only the True Dragon ranking list at the end will have its true use. It will spread your name throughout the entire Tianwu continent. Ding Fengqiu's tone clearly contained a hint of dissatisfaction. Xiao Chen's expression froze. It looked like this Ding Fengqiu had comprehended some strong killing move and was preparing to display his sharpness in the second elimination round. Jiang Zimo smiled and said, that's right. The True Dragon ranking list is more fake than real. In the end, the True Dragon ranking list will spread. Furthermore, this True Dragon ranking list will expose you all. I believe that there will be even more people watching you in tomorrow's competition. That is not a good thing. Kim Tae-ho chuckled and said, this fat lord is not afraid of that. No one can see through this fat lord's moves. Everyone burst out laughing. They wanted to say something, but they held it in and did not say anything. Given his shameless moves, he was not embarrassed to be so cocky. There was nothing they could say. As they drank tea and chatted, they listened to the ancient music of the high mountains and flowing rivers. This was a rare moment of leisure before a big battle. Everyone was very engrossed. Tomorrow would be the most intense elimination round in the history of the 5-nation youth competition. The 9 seeded participants would appear one by one, and the newcomers would do their best to catch up. Everyone present, other than the naive and pure Xiao Bai, could not help but feel agitated. The True Dragon ranking would only introduce the top 100 contestants. If one did not pass the second round of elimination, one would be unknown in this age of geniuses for a long time. Everyone here was an outstanding talent. Zuo and Ding Fengqiu were among the top 70 in the previous 5-nation youth competition. If they could not even make it onto the ranking this time, they would be extremely disappointed. By sunset, everyone was already talking about sex. Kim Tae-ho raised his teacup and said, come, let's replace wine with tea. Let's drink a cup. If we win tomorrow, we will enter the True Dragon ranking together. Bai laughed and said, even if you go up there, you'll still be a fat dragon, not a true dragon. Fatso smiled awkwardly and said, I'm not afraid of him getting fat, as long as he's real. The few of them clinked their cups lightly and drank the tea in one gulp. After Fatso paid the bill, he led the group downstairs. However, when they reached the staircase, they ran into a group of people that no one wanted to see. The Evil Moon Pavilion's Bai Zhan was leading his disciples down the stairs. Coincidentally, they bumped into each other at the top of the stairs when they were walking towards each other. When the Evil Moon Pavilion's people saw Fatso, who was leading the group, they all glared at him. They wished they could skin him alive. This was especially so for Ling Feng, who had been knocked unconscious by Kim Tae-ho's coffin lid. He placed his hand on his weapon and cursed, damn you, Fatso. You are really bold. You can forget about leaving today. When Xie Ziwen saw Xiao Chen in the group, he also became enraged. When he saw his first senior brother, Bai Zhan, he shouted, you are just a group of trash cultivators from the 4 nations. What do you know about drinking tea? Ignorance of tea was very strange. Cultivators were not prohibited from fighting. However, if they broke anything, they would have to pay the original price. These people mocked Xiao Chen and the others. Clearly, they wanted to provoke Xiao Chen and the others into attacking first. In that case, there would be nothing to fear. Kim Tae-ho smiled and said, "Even trash knows how to speak human." How strange. A sect that could not even block one move from this fat lord dares to speak so arrogantly. Ka Xie. When Ling Feng heard this, he could not help but draw most of his sword. However, Bai Zhan, who was in front, knocked it back with a palm strike. Bai Zhan gave Xiao Qin a deep look and said, "Let's go." Xie Ziwen and Ling Feng were stunned. They did not know why Bai Zhan let Kim Tae-ho and the others leave when there was such a good opportunity. How could they know that Bai Zhan had been severely injured by Xiao Qin in the boundless sea and had to flee? Without absolute confidence, Bai Zhan naturally would not make a move. Ding Fengqiu and the others heaved a sigh of relief. They said in bewilderment that Bai Zhan actually left. This is strange. That fellow's strength is unfathomable. He is one level higher than us. Xiao Qin smiled faintly and said indifferently, "Who knows?" Naturally, one day passed very quickly. Before the sky brightened, the vast arena was already filled with people. Everyone knew that the truly exciting matches would only begin today. When the newcomer ranking came out, the 9 seeded participants appeared one by one. The 5-nation youth competition would welcome one climax after another. Missing one day of the competition would be enough to make one regret it for life. Of the 400 participants, half of them were eliminated in the first round, leaving only 200. There were 20 groups. 2 groups were randomly grouped together to form 10 groups. Each group still had 20 people. The rules of the previous round were the same. Half of the people would be eliminated. It did not seem like the elimination rate was high. At the very least, there was still a chance. However, those who passed the first round were the elites of the elites. With the 2 groups combined and the seeded participants appearing, it was easy to imagine how difficult it would be. Furthermore, only the top 100 people would be able to enter the True Dragon ranking compiled by the City Lord's residents. This was a great opportunity to make a name for oneself. Several of the participants who had hidden their strength would erupt out in this round, fighting for glory. This would make the already intense battles even more miserable. The original Group 6 and Group 10 will merge and become a new Group 5. When Xiao Qin received the notice, he could not help but recall some of the experts in Group 10. Group 10 seemed to be the group that the genius saber user, Lin Fei, was in. There were some veteran experts in that group. However, Lin Fei defeated them all, allowing him to advance with a complete victory. Furthermore, as a result, Lin Fei became a newcomer on the newcomer ranking, second only to Xianyuan Zhantian. The seeded participants are going to choose the new group after the merger. I wonder which group Yu Chenxi will choose. Nangong Ziyue's group will merge with Group 9 to form Group 7. If he dares to accept Nangong Ziyue's challenge, he will probably choose Group 6. Yu Chenxi will definitely choose Group 7. I wonder who will choose Xianyuan Zhantian's group. Sima Lingxian is not coming out. I really want to see which seeded participant has the guts to do so. I believe no one would be so foolish as to fight Xianyuan Zhantian before the true finals. They would expose their strength too early. After the 20 groups were merged, it was time for the seeded participants to choose freely. Being able to choose freely was one of the benefits of being a seeded participant. Yu Chenxi did not disappoint the crowd. He was the first to choose Group 7, which Nangong Ziyue was in. The 2 women looked at each other from a distance. When their strong auras clashed in the air, it seemed like sparks would explode. Before they officially started fighting, they were already exchanging glances. The one who chose Xiao Chen's group was the supreme E-Sex Gong Yangyu. Gong Yangyu's strength had always been very stable. Although he was not among the top 10, he was not weak either. Gong Yangyu's everlasting staff technique could cause wind and lightning to appear, scattering the clouds and fog. He was a genius type. He was not rash, did not take risks, and did not have many unique characteristics. He just followed the path laid out by others, walking down it without stopping. However, to everyone's surprise, the 3rd seeded participant, Lu Xiaoyun, chose Xianyuan Zhantian's group. Lu Xiaoyun's goal was very clear. He wanted to fight against Xianyuan Zhangtian, who dared to challenge Sima Lingxian. When Bai Qi saw Lu Xiaoyun's choice, he was somewhat disappointed. He said softly, "He snatched the spot before me." After the seated participants left, only the handsome and incomparably strong Sima Lingxian remained in the spectator stands. Without needing to fight, Sima Lingxian automatically entered the True Dragon ranking. He was the only one in the past 2 years. Sima Lingxian had a calm expression, as though everything was as it should be. A strong self-confidence spread out from Sima Lingxian, giving others the impression that only he, Sima Lingxian, was qualified to sit here. This was Sima Lingxian, who stood above the masses and stood apart from them. This was Sima Lingxian. However, Xiaochen did not care about these irrelevant things. He muttered, "There are only 2 true experts in Group 5, Lin Fei and Gong Yangyu. I wonder how much of my strength they can allow me to bring out." Group 5's first match, Lin Fei vs Jian Qiushui. As time went by, the first match of Group 5 officially began. The newcomer ranking second, Lin Fei, versus the Sun Moon Sword Sect's Jian Qiushui. Jian Qiushui was a strong participant ranked 30th in the previous 5-nation youth competition. He had fought with Lin Fei before and managed to last 10 moves before being defeated. Naturally, Jian Qiushui could not improve much in one day. Without any surprises, he was defeated by Lin Fei in 7 moves. Second match, Xiaochen vs Ma Yuan. The matches passed very quickly. It was Xiaochen's turn in the second match. With a gentle push, Xiaochen floated onto the dueling ring and looked calmly at Ma Yuan. As a Divine Saber Gate elite disciple, although Ma Yuan had lost to Lin Fei, he was not convinced of his defeat. He had only lost to Lin Fei's strange saber technique. If it were any other newcomer, they would not be a match for him. He, Ma Yuan, was definitely not a stepping stone for newcomers. Ma Yuan suppressed his anger and wanted to prove his strength. When he saw the 9th-ranked Xiaochen, he immediately smiled and said, "Xiaochen, many thanks for giving me this opportunity to prove myself." Xiaochen was speechless. "You want to prove yourself? What does that have to do with me? You speak so arrogantly as though the victory is yours before the match even starts." The 9th-ranked Xiaochen vs Ma Yuan. This is going to be interesting. Originally, many people thought that there were no experts in Group 6. Xiaochen's complete victory record was overstated. I heard that many people were not satisfied with his ranking on the newcomer ranking. His match with Ma Yuan will allow us to see his true standards. We can see if he lives up to his reputation as the 9th-ranked newcomer ranking. Surprisingly, the second match of Group 5 attracted the attention of many people. Clearly, it was because of the newcomer ranking. Now, many eyes were on Xiaochen. Chapter 576. Receive my move. Blood washing the world. Ma Yuan shouted. This time, he did not use the starting stance of the Blood Shadow Saber technique. Instead, he used one of the strongest killing moves of the Blood Shadow Saber technique. Clearly, Ma Yuan was in a rush. He wanted to defeat Xiaochen in the shortest time possible, to regain the honor that he lost to Lin Fei. A scarlet light filled the air, and a killing qi spread out. Ma Yuan leaped into the air, carrying an aura that could split mountains. He contained a boundless killing intent as he headed for Xiaochen's head. Dang! Xiaochen held his saber with his left hand and did not draw it. He gently raised it and blocked this heavy saber strike. His feet did not move at all, he did not even move back a single step. Ma Yuan was momentarily distracted. How can this be? Just the killing intent of this saber strike is enough to make a regular cultivator dodge it. Its might is incomparably strong. However, Xiaochen raised his hand and blocked it. This completely surpassed Ma Yuan's expectations. That killing intent was like a muddy sea, there were no ripples at all. Xiaochen had been waiting for this opportunity. He grasped the saber hilt with his right hand and instantly drew the lunar shadow saber. The powerful massacre intent drowned out Ma Yuan's surging killing intent in an instant. The killing chi that Ma Yuan was so proud of was like a child's joke before Xiao Chen. Dang! Ma Yuan withdrew his saber to block. However, the vast essence contained in Xiao Chen's saber knocked him back. His chi and blood surged endlessly. Blood washing the world. I cannot lose. Ma Yuan shouted in his heart. He suppressed the surging chi and blood in his body and executed another move of the blood shadow saber technique at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen said softly, "You still want to make a comeback? Can you do it?" The purple crystalline chi whirlpool spun quickly in Xiao Chen's body. The surging essence gathered on the saber, and crystalline electricity appeared on the blade. Xiao Chen swept his saber across and knocked Ma Yuan back again. The killing chi of the blood shadow saber technique was broken, and its might decreased. If Ma Yuan still wanted to clash head-on with Xiao Chen, he would not have the chance. Xiao Chen shouted and took the initiative to attack while holding the lunar shadow saber. Bang, bang, bang. The saber light flickered, and the surging energy gave off a heaven-shaking roar. Xiao Chen hacked down 3 times, not giving Ma Yuan a chance to catch his breath. He directly used his powerful Yuan Qi as a foundation to break the other party's killing intent and fight it head-on. After 3 moves, the suppressed injuries in Ma Yuan's body erupted out ferociously. He vomited a mouthful of blood, his body incredibly weak. 4 moves. From the moment Xiao Chen drew his saber to the moment he sheathed it, he used only 4 moves to defeat the divine saber gate's Ma Yuan. Compared to Lin Fei's 7 saber strikes, Xiao Chen had 3 less saber strikes. This time, none of the spectating cultivators dared to object to Xiao Chen's ranking. In the dueling ring, the divine saber gate's Ma Yuan, who was lying on the ground, had an unsightly expression. Originally, he wanted to prove himself in this battle. Who knew that he would lose again? Moreover, he had been defeated so thoroughly and in such a sorry state. It was even more direct than his defeat at the hands of Lin Fei, and it made him feel even more despair. Lin Fei had defeated him in 7 moves. However, Ma Yuan believed that if it were not for that strange saber technique, Lin Fei would have needed at least 100 moves to defeat him. Ma Yuan refused to accept this, he refused to accept this at all. However, he had no choice but to accept his defeat at the hands of Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen did not compete in techniques with him. Ma Yuan played with killing chi, so Xiao Chen played with killing chi. In the end, he suffered a crushing defeat. Before Ma Yuan's killing chi, it was like a child's joke. Ma Yuan wanted to clash head-on, and Xiao Chen did as he wished, clashing head-on with him. In the end, they were both small perfection half-step martial monarchs. Xiao Chen's essence was much denser than Ma Yuan's. Be it quality or quantity, Xiao Chen's essence far surpassed Ma Yuan's. 4 moves. Xiao Chen used only 4 moves, 3 less than when he lost to Lin Fei. Once again, a newcomer trampled on Ma Yuan, becoming their stumbling block. When Xiao Chen, who was preparing to get off the stage, saw Ma Yuan's disappointed expression, he felt something in his heart. He stopped and said, "You did not lose to me, you lost to yourself." The blood shadow saber technique relies on killing chi and the traceless nimbleness. However, you were too anxious. You only wanted to defeat your opponent quickly. However, you did not even bring out the surface of the blood shadow saber technique. If your heart is not steady, how can your saber techniques and martial techniques be perfect? Think about your move. Are the blood and shadows connected? There is no connection at all between the killing intent and the traceless spiritual aura. If you could cultivate it to great perfection, you would not have been defeated so miserably, even if you faced a stronger opponent. If Ma Yuan could not accept defeat at the hands of Lin Fei and Xiao Chen at the same time, it would become a demon in his heart. His progress in saber techniques would come to an end. There were too few experts famous for their saber techniques in the continent. As a bladesman, Xiao Chen did not want to see an outstanding talent of the saber technique sink into dejection like this. When the first elder of the divine saber gate in the spectator stand saw this scene, he smiled faintly and said, "This fellow is young, but his mental state is rare. I hope Ma Yuan can accept this." These two defeats might be his chance to transform from a cocoon into a butterfly. The first disciple of the divine saber gate, Li Zixuan, also nodded and said, "This person is not simple. As an outsider, he seems to have a clearer understanding of the essence of the blood shadow saber technique than us." The other newcomer in Group 5, Lin Fei, curled his lips. He said disapprovingly, "He sure knows how to act. He only defeated Ma Yuan in 4 moves. If I used my full strength, I would be able to defeat him in 3 moves." The silent seated participant, the Supreme East Sex Gong Yangyu, had a hard-to-detect grave look in his calm eyes. He had a vague premonition that Xiao Qin would be a strong opponent for him in Group 5. After Zhuo Mo sat down, Xiao Qin started to pay attention to the matches of the people he was familiar with. Zhuo Mo's luck was very bad. He was in the same group as Bai Zhan. In the first match, he met Bai Zhan. It seemed like Bai Zhan's attacks were very heavy due to Zhuo Mo's relationship with Xiao Qin. He did not seem to be in a rush to defeat Zhuo Mo. Bai Zhan continued to grind Zhuo Mo down. Occasionally, he would purposely reveal some small openings, letting Zhuo Mo think that he still had a chance and would not admit defeat. As time went by, Zhuo Mo's injuries worsened. When he finally realized that he had no chance of defeating Bai Zhan laughed maniacally. He sent out both palms. One palm was like an erupting volcano, surging with heat waves. The other palm was like drifting snow, bone-chilling. The combination of ice and fire entered Zhuo Mo's body, causing his face to alternate between red and white. Blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth like a fountain. Before Zhuo Mo could admit defeat, Bai Zhan beat him until he lost all ability to continue fighting. Zhuo Mo was completely crippled for the day. He could only withdraw from the competition and forever lose the chance to enter the True Dragon ranking. After defeating Zhuo Mo, Bai Zhan's lips curled up in a cold smile. He looked at Xiao Qin with a sinister gaze. Bai Zhan was silently telling Xiao Qin that he was doing this on purpose. While he was tormenting his friend, he was also using this match to disrupt Xiao Qin's mental state and weaken his strength. A dense murderous intent flashed in Xiao Qin's eyes. However, his heart was as calm as still water. If Bai Zhan wanted to disrupt his mental state, then he would be gravely mistaken. Not only would Bai Zhan's actions not achieve the effect he wanted, but they would also bring him an inescapable calamity. This was because he had thoroughly angered Xiao Qin. The seated participant, Gong Yangyu, is coming out. Soft cries came from behind, pulling Xiao Qin back from his thoughts. He looked up and saw that Gong Yangyu was already standing in the dueling ring of Group 5, holding a staff in his hand. The staff was about 1 meter long and greenish-purple in color. It was taller than Gong Yangyu by a head. Black patterns were drawn on the surface of the staff, making the entire staff seem very heavy. Gong Yangyu's opponent was a male disciple from the Haoyan sect. His name was Gao Jian, and he used a rarely seen large axe. He walked the same path as Gong Yangyu, using large and bold moves. As disciples of the 10 great sects, the two of them seemed to have known each other for a long time. Gao Jian knew that he could not defeat Gong Yangyu. He smiled gently and said, "Brother Gong Yangyu, please show mercy." Gong Yangyu said softly, "In that case, don't overdo it." Gong Yangyu did not put on the airs of an expert. After he spoke, he spun the staff around with one hand. A strong wind blew, causing Gao Jian to squint. Boom! Boom! Amid the strong wind, 2 claps of thunder resounded. When the third clap of thunder rang out, Gong Yangyu's feet moved. Wind and thunder roared. This staff strike carried the momentum of wind and thunder as it headed straight for the root of the problem. It was clearly just a simple action, but Gong Yangyu's hands were like wind and thunder. He looked very imposing, giving off the air of a great grandmaster. Gao Jian shouted and lowered his feet. He lowered his center of gravity, using the tenacity of an old tree's roots. He grasped the huge axe with both hands and swung it ferociously. Bang! The axe struck the top of the staff, creating a strong shockwave. An intense whirlwind formed around the two of them, rising up. Bang! 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 Gao Jian's foundation was solid, so his move was very ordinary. However, he did not have enough strength. The surging electric light on the tip of the staff forced him back a few steps. Gong Yangyu had a very serious expression. He did not have any intention of underestimating his opponent. He quickly took 7 steps to the side, leaving behind an afterimage with each step. The 7 afterimages held wooden staffs and used different moves. At a glance, it looked like 7 people swinging their staffs at the same time. Xiao. When the 7 afterimages merged, the staff in Gong Yangyu's hand moved at an unimaginable angle, piercing through Gao Jian's hands and the huge axe. Then, it pointed at Gao Jian's forehead. As long as Xiao Qin used a little more force, Gong Yangyu's staff would be able to pierce through Gao Jian's head. Who? Gong Yangyu withdrew his hand and spun his staff around before placing it behind him. He said softly, "Thank you for going easy on me." Gao Jian laughed bitterly, and without saying a word, he jumped off the ring. How powerful! Exactly how did that last staff strike come out? I simply did not manage to see it clearly. Gong Yangyu's strength is rather stable. Compared to 3 years ago, he has improved significantly. A seated participant is indeed extraordinary. With just 2 simple moves, he is clearly different from the other newcomers. After watching Gong Yangyu's match, the nearby cultivators could not help but sigh in admiration. Aside from strength, many of them saw something else. Gong Yangyu's moves were not very shocking. At the very least, they were not as exquisite as Lin Fei's strange saber technique. However, for some reason, the crowd felt that Gong Yangyu was very strong, even stronger than Lin Fei. Xiao Qin smiled faintly. With one glance, he could see through the logic behind this. It was all about accumulations. In Xiao Chen's previous life, Lin Fei would have been a nouveau riche. He would be stunning and overbearing, showing off his sharpness. As for Gong Yangyu, he had been famous for a long time. His sharpness was withdrawn, forming a unique aura. After some time, he might become a grandmaster of the staff Dao. Chapter 577. Of course, who was stronger and who was weaker would only be known after a real fight. One could say that the nouveau riche was ostentatious, but one could not look down on the nouveau riche's strength. Naturally, the genius saber Lin Fei heard the discussions of the crowd. He revealed a disdainful smile and said, "All of you like to pretend. Wait until I trample all of you under my feet. Let's see what else you can say then." In the following matches, Lin Fei seemed to be competing with Xiao Chen. He used only 3 moves to defeat his opponent in every match, no matter how strong his opponent was. That elusive earth vein saber technique appeared in the dueling ring once again, one on the ground and one in the sky. Lin Fei clearly only had the strength of 1 saber strike, but he sent out 2 strands of saber qi. Furthermore, they came from tricky angles and were hard to defend against. Lin Fei immediately became the focus of the dueling ring for Group 5. He was the most discussed person in the crowd. They were all astonished at the strength he displayed. Lin Fei's fame surpassed that of Xiao Chen, even suppressing Gong Yangyu. Ha ha! Interesting. Xiao Chen used 4 moves to defeat Ma Yuan. Then, Lin Fei ran into Ma Yuan. In the end, he only used 3 moves. This Ma Yuan is really unlucky. It looks like this Lin Fei is purposely trying to fight with Xiao Chen. He only used 3 moves against each opponent, just 1 less than Xiao Chen. He is a youngster, after all. This is what they fight for. One is the 2nd rank of the newcomer ranking list, and the other is the 9th. He definitely does not want Xiao Chen to suppress him. I feel that he is too flashy. What is the point of fighting for this? We will know who is stronger after a match. The crowd discussed. Most of them praised Lin Fei, but there were also a few who did not, feeling that he was too flashy. However, no matter what, most of them acknowledged Lin Fei's strength. They felt that he was fully deserving of the second rank of the newcomer ranking list. Xiao Qin did not feel anything about this. He only cared about defeating the opponents before him. When he met an interesting opponent, he would feel excited. Not only would he not end the match quickly, but he would also slowly savor the opponent's moves, trying to figure out what was so special about them. Only when Xiao Qin met an opponent with a huge gap in strength would he feel that it was a waste of time. Following one's nature, following one's heart, the saber moved according to one's heart. The heart was like a heavenly steed soaring through the sky, and the saber was like a ghost's axe. There were many heroes in the world. In the world that Xiao Qin came from, there was an ancient sage who once said, "When three people walk together, there is always someone to learn from." Even the weakest opponent would have some shining points that were worth learning. The five-nation youth competition was a rare opportunity to gather all the heroes of the world. This was a good opportunity to broaden one's horizons and improve oneself. Victory was very important, but what was more important was the continuous improvement of one's own accumulation and the continuous expansion of one's horizons. When everything accumulated to a certain extent, it would explode with a bang, producing an extremely terrifying amount of energy. Gong Yangyu, who had become famous long ago, did not watch many spectacular battles. He was not as ferocious as Lin Fei. However, he had not lost a single match. Furthermore, his strength was not bottomed out. In his eyes, he smiled slightly, not taking this matter to heart at all. Next match, Xiao Qin vs Gong Yangyu. The true battles between the experts of Group 5 finally began at this moment. Some of the cultivators who had been paying attention to the other arenas all looked over. Their eyes were filled with impatience. Although Xiao Chen's progress was startling, everyone was very curious about him. They wanted to know how strong Xiao Chen was and how far he could go in the end. As for Gong Yangyu's strength, it went without saying. He was a veteran expert. Gong Yangyu became famous at a young age, and he fought steadily. In the previous five-nation youth competition, he established his position. He became a giant of the younger generation. His talent was astonishing, and he had the backing of a super sect. Such a person did not need many words to describe him. Gong Yangyu was a giant of the younger generation, someone who could compete with Bai Qi, Lu Xiaoyun, and the 8 noble scions. Group 5's competition is finally going to welcome a match of sufficient importance. The rookie Xiao Qin against the giant Gong Yangyu. It is time for Xiao Chen's consecutive victories to come to an end. With the appearance of the seeded participants, the other rookies' consecutive victories also came to an end. At the hands of the giants, they lost their legend of invincibility. That's right. Although the rookies are strong, the time given to them is too short. Compared to the veteran experts, they are only a so-so. Before the attention of the crowd, the two calmly walked into the arenas. Their expressions did not change much. Lin Fei stared at the two of them. A flame burned in his eyes, clearly filled with a strong fighting spirit. He thought to himself, my two greatest opponents actually met early. This time, luck is on my side. I am Xiao Qin of the Great Qin Nation's Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Please give me some pointers. I am Gong Yangyu of the Great Jin Nation's Supreme Yi sect. Please give me some pointers. After Gong Yangyu performed a cupped fist salute, he gently spun the wooden staff in his hand. He grasped the end of the staff and pointed it at Xiao Qin. He was not in a rush to attack. Xiao Qin took 2 steps back and tilted his body slightly. He placed his right hand on the saber hilt and focused his gaze on the tip of his opponent's staff, forming a straight line with it. Who? Who? The two's auras clashed in the air, forming a chaotic wind blowing everywhere. The cool breeze blew back Xiao Chen's hair, revealing his delicate face with a blue bandage tied around it. His expression was as calm as before, not showing any nervousness from the impending battle. Since there were no openings in Xiao Chen's aura, he could only create openings. In the first place, Gong Yangyu had not intended to find openings in Xiao Chen's aura. He raised his staff and took the initiative to attack. His feet instantly moved. With one step, he brandished his staff and a strong wind blew. A clear afterimage of Gong Yangyu appeared on the ground. With 2 steps, Gong Yangyu pointed his staff at Xiao Chen. Thunder roared in the wind and he left another afterimage on the ground. With 3 steps, a strong wind blew and thunder roared. When Gong Yangyu swung his staff, wind and thunder roared. Gong Yangyu's afterimage leaped high into the air. He held his staff with one hand and smashed it down on Xiao Chen's head. Gong Yangyu took 3 steps forward. With each step, he executed a move. With each step, his aura soared. By the final step, his aura had already reached its peak. The might of that staff contained the speed of a strong wind and the roar of thunder. In just 3 short steps, his aura had already reached such a horrifying level. Furthermore, that was not all. The first 2 steps were not as simple as just an afterimage. When Xiao Chen saw this clearly, he thought to himself, it is just a simple staff move, but it has many tricks up its sleeves. Just as the staff was about to reach Xiao Chen's head, Xiao Chen moved. He drew his lunar shadow saber by 3 centimeters and blocked this heavy staff strike with a bang. When the 2 extremely powerful forces collided, a powerful energy immediately burst forth. Circles of invisible ripples dispersed, and there seemed to be creases appearing in the space. Shockwaves surged and strong winds howled. No one noticed that 7 cool breezes appeared behind Xiao Chen, gently drifting into the distance. Creating something from nothing. Break! Gong Yangyu shouted and the 2 afterimages behind him merged back together. His originally exhausted staff strike now had 2 new forces hidden within it. Each wave was stronger than the one before, surging over like a tidal wave. Gong Yangyu shouted, and the 2 afterimages merged back together. Gong Yangyu's staff strike contained the power of wind and lightning. Each wave was stronger than the last, surging over like a tidal wave. The referee in the wind cloud platform nodded slightly. He thought to himself, it looks like Gong Yangyu's attainments in the Supreme sect's everlasting staff technique have already surpassed some of the elders in the sect. Boom! The surging energy carried the power of wind and lightning. Bang! It shattered Xiao Chen, who was still standing, into pieces. When the wooden staff landed on the ground, it immediately created a crack that extended continuously. Strands of dragon chi spread out from the crack. Dragon roars came from the wind cloud platform. Winds blew, clouds churned, and the sky changed color. The cultivators and the spectator stands all sucked in a breath of cold air. How strong was this staff strike for it to be able to create a crack in the wind cloud platform? Even the dragon chi leaked out. However, Gong Yangyu frowned tightly. He withdrew his staff and muttered, "Clone." The strong wind stopped and the dust scattered. Gong Yangyu looked up and saw 7 figures of Xiao Chen at the edge of the arena. He had only drawn his lunar shadow saber by 3 centimeters, but now, he had drawn it all. The referee in the arena opened his eyes wide. He thought to himself in astonishment, when did he change moves? Unexpectedly, I did not notice it. Roar! Roar! Accompanied by dragon roars, the 7 figures turned into cool breezes. Their weapons did not appear, and their killing intent was hidden. 7 cool breezes blew at Gong Yangyu, carrying traces of gentleness. Cool breeze, only seeing the cool breeze and not the saber. Gong Yangyu had a grave expression. The gentle breeze could not bring him any warmth at all. The staff moved around like a flood dragon, dancing up and down, kicking up a boundless strong wind. Gong Yangyu took 7 steps back. With each step, he left behind an afterimage. Thunder roared in the sky. Dang! 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 Before the cultivators in the spectator stands could react, 7 buzzing sounds came from the wind cloud platform. The sounds were ear-splitting, and the sound waves were like thunder. They passed through the wind-cloud barrier and reached the ears of the crowd. They felt their eardrums tremble and some pain. Everyone was horrified, feeling fear in their hearts. If not for the wind-cloud barrier, everyone would have temporarily lost their hearing. How strong were these two monsters? Roaming Dragon's 9 transformations, merge. Everlasting 100 transformations, merge. The two shouted at the same time. In that instant, Xiao Chen's clone and Gong Yangyu's afterimages merged. This staff strike carried the peak state of wind and thunder. Using the power of the 7 afterimages, it tore through space like a tall mountain chopping down ferociously. Heavy momentum. What was heavy momentum? This staff strike was heavy momentum. Strong winds howled and thunder roared. Wind and thunder roared together. The thunder used the might of the wind to materialize a boundless aura. Heavy force. Every afterimage of the everlasting staff technique was Gong Yangyu's peak attack. Now that the 7 afterimages merged, Gong Yangyu's attack power increased by 7 times. A threefold increase in attack power could tear apart the wind-cloud platform and cause Dragon Chi to soar into the clouds. Winds blew, clouds churned, and the sky changed color. In that case, what about a 7-fold increase in attack power? Gong Yangyu was very strong. However, how could Xiao Chen be any weaker? The killing intent from earlier exploded out the instant the 7 afterimages merged. The sharp killing intent turned into a boundless sea of blood. The air in the wind-cloud platform seemed to solidify. Gong Yangyu's staff strike, which contained a boundless aura, slowed under the obstruction of this killing intent. When the cultivators in the spectator stands saw the scarlet air in the wind-cloud platform far away, they all felt their hearts palpitate. It was easy to imagine what kind of pressure Gong Yangyu, who was locked down by the killing intent, was enduring. Chapter 578. However, this is not enough, far from enough. You have the peak state of wind and thunder, allowing the thunder to borrow the might of the wind to materialize a boundless aura, using it to suppress others. I also have the state of thunder. Furthermore, it is stronger and more ruthless than yours. Why would I fear your boundless aura, afraid of you using it to suppress others? At Thunder Emperor Valley, Xiao Chen had obtained the inheritance of the Thunder King's immortal will of thunder. At this moment, Xiao Chen completely unleashed his state of thunder. The peak consummation state of thunder that contained a trace of immortal mixed with the peak state of massacre. An extremely horrifying scarlet lightning formed on the long saber. The crystal chi whirlpool in Xiao Chen's body spun wildly, making the scarlet lightning look even more strange and terrifying. Boom! The instant the two's afterimages and clones merged, the wooden staff and saber quickly clashed. A loud sound resounded. Everyone's ears, which were previously tortured by the sound waves, temporarily lost their ability to hear. Only some of the stronger cultivators survived. Roar! 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 On the ground, cracks spread out on the wind-cloud platform under the two. Dragon Chi poured out continuously. Dragon roars resounded without end. The thick clouds in the sky could not help but churn. Bang! 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 The two quickly retreated backward. Blood leaked out of the corners of their mouths. Clearly, they had suffered some internal injuries. Xiao Chen took 10 steps back before he could stand stably. As for Gong Yangyu, he took 15 steps back before he managed to stand stably. His expression was even more unsightly than Xiao Chen's. One did not cultivate the physical body, and the other had a strong physical body. When faced with an evenly matched opponent, it was clear who suffered the most damage. Gong Yangyu wiped off the blood from the corner of his lips and revealed a faint smile. He said, "Since I reached great perfection in the everlasting staff technique, no one in the same generation has been able to defeat me in offensive power. You are the first." Xiao Chen gently brandished the lunar shadow saber and smiled faintly. "You are the same. With my state of thunder and state of massacre combined with the 6th layer of the purple thunder divine incantation, you are the only one who can stand and speak." As the dragon roars resounded, the two of them appreciated each other and faced each other calmly. However, they did not have much ambition for victory. They appeared calm and indifferent. This battle was just a martial arts competition. Bang! Gong Yangyu held his staff and waved it around. Thunder rumbled and a strong wind blew. Then, he stomped heavily on the ground. His aura quickly gathered and he shouted, again. Everlasting mirage. Gong Yangyu brandished his long and heavy staff up and down. In the blink of an eye, he created 3 afterimages. Each afterimage had a different aura. One was like a flood dragon roaring ferociously, ruling the world, one was like a golden snake soaring like lightning, one was like an eagle spreading its wings, breaking through the clouds. The afterimages turned into 3 arcs and quickly flew at Xiao Chen. The instant they got close, the 3 afterimages merged and hacked down with the staff containing the 3 auras. Xiao Chen raised his saber and placed his left hand on the saber. Then, he quickly slid it upwards. A scarlet wukue flower bloomed under his feet. When his finger brushed the tip of the saber, the scarlet flower buds suddenly closed up. Bang! The long rod struck the flower bud, causing cracks to appear on the ground. However, the blood-colored flower bud did not change much. This move was Xiao Chen's strongest defensive move. The might of this saber technique would also increase as his state of thunder and state of massacre increased. Now, it was enough to defend against an attack from a cultivator of the same generation. Wukue blossoms. Within the flower bud, Xiao Chen formed hand seals and the scarlet flower bud immediately bloomed. It produced a strong explosive force and knocked back Gong Yangyu, who was preparing to send out a second staff strike. The flower petals filled the air and danced in the wind. Xiao Chen leaped out of the flower bud and used the strange force of the flower petals to increase his speed. Then, he chased after Gong Yangyu. When Gong Yangyu faced Xiao Chen, whose speed had increased by 20%, he was somewhat astonished. He did not compete with Xiao Chen in speed. Gong Yangyu did not move from his original spot amid the flower petals. However, the staff in his hand moved continuously. He used the everlasting mirage to materialize all sorts of auras, blocking all of Xiao Chen's attacks. However, if one defended for too long, one would lose. Xiao Chen had the advantage of speed in the flower petals. Furthermore, he had the state of massacre and state of thunder. No one could block him forever. Naturally, Gong Yangyu understood this principle. His face sank and he decided to cut off all means of retreat, deciding victory in one move. Gong Yangyu smiled bitterly to himself. Although he had expected that the white-robed bladesman before him would be a strong opponent, he had not expected this person to be so difficult to deal with. However, he didn't expect that this person would be so difficult to deal with. Under his almost heaven-defying attack power, he was actually able to block it. The various auras that the everlasting phantom had manifested were also offset by the speed advantage of this strange petal. Now, Gong Yangyu was forced to use the killing move that he had used to deal with the 8 noble clan scions. Tossing heaven and earth. Suddenly, Gong Yangyu shouted ferociously and the staff in his hand spun rapidly. His aura soared. An irresistible strong wind blew, and the flower petals in the air immediately scattered and fell to the ground. Heaven as the sky, Kun as the earth. Using the power of the earth and the might of the sky, tossing heaven and earth. As the staff spun, Gong Yangyu's aura soared continuously. When his aura reached its peak, the staff in his hand flew at Xiao Chen without needing to be moved. The instant the staff left his hand, Gong Yangyu's complexion paled. He had spent too much effort on this move. If he still could not defeat Xiao Chen, he could only admit defeat. Tossing heaven and earth, this move that Gong Yangyu had spent all his effort on was incredibly strong. To dare to use the might of the sky and use the power of the earth, this was not something that just anyone could do. Chi! Chi! All the energy gathered at the tip of the staff. Then, the blurry space around the staff scattered. In the end, a black dot appeared in space like a piece of white paper. a tiny crack appeared in space. With a swoosh, the wooden stick pierced through the void. This stick actually shattered the void. Although it was only a small crack, it had indeed opened the void. All the cultivators in the spectator stands opened their mouths wide in shock. Even Lin Fei was shocked. A strange look flashed in the eyes of Sima Lingxian, who was in the seated spectator stands. He muttered, tossing heaven and earth. Not bad. With this move, Gong Yangyu will be able to advance a few steps in this five-nation youth competition. Even space shattered. This is something only a martial monarch can do. How did Gong Yangyu do it? That is tossing heaven and earth, the inherited secret technique of the Supreme Yi sect. Its offensive power is incomparably strong. Unexpectedly, Gong Yangyu managed to practice it. However, he is far from being able to use it as he pleases. Xiao Qin is going to lose. This move shatters space and disappears without a trace. There is no way to dodge it, he will not be able to dodge it. Several of the cultivators in the spectator stands felt it was a pity. It looked like Xiao Qin was about to use his strength as a newcomer to turn the tables on a giant. Who knew that Gong Yangyu would suddenly make such a move? Even several inferior-grade martial monarchs who comprehended quintessence would not be able to block it. How could Xiao Qin block it with his small perfection half-step martial monarch cultivation? Up in the air, Xiao Qin had a grave expression. He did not panic like the crowd expected. If Xiao Qin were only a half-step martial monarch, even if he cultivated a heaven-ranked cultivation technique, he would be severely injured if he forcefully blocked this move. At best, this match would end in a draw. However, Xiao Qin was different. Aside from his vast cultivation, his physical body was not much weaker than Bai Lishi's. With the aid of the firmament body tempering art, he was not much weaker than a great perfection physical body cultivator like Bai Lishi. Just with the strength of his physical body, Xiao Qian's punch could reach 600,000 kilograms. If he merged his essence and vital qi, his punch could reach 500,000 kilograms. Even Bai Lishi could not achieve that. Ka Xie. The instant the wooden staff shattered space, Xiao Qin sheathed it. Then, he casually tossed the lunar shadow saber high into the air. What is he doing? Is he seeking death? All the cultivators in the spectator stands asked suspiciously. All the vital qi in Xiao Qian's body surged. The firmament body tempering art and the purple thunder divine incantation surged at the same time. Essence and vital qi instantly merged, forming a strong force. Xiao Qian's entire body surged. A crackling sound like frying beans came from Xiao Qian's body. Pooh! Suddenly, a small hole appeared in space 1 meter in front of Xiao Qin. Half of the thick and heavy black wooden staff appeared and smashed towards his face. The force on the tip of the staff was too great. The moment it appeared, it brought with it a gust of wind that blew towards Xiao Qin. The wind contained a strong force, and when it struck Xiao Qian's body, it was like many blades slicing at him. Several small tears appeared on the clear wind robes, turning them into tatters. However, when the wind blades struck Xiao Qian's skin, they gave off ping-ping sounds like they were hitting steel. Berserk dragon stance, retreat for me. Xiao Qin shouted and clenched his right hand into a fist. The vast, ocean-like force in his body instantly surged over. When Xiao Qin punched, a dragon roar resounded. This dragon roar was very piercing. It immediately suppressed the dragon roar coming from the dragon qi underground. An azure dragon head appeared on the tip of his fist. Xiao Qin did not show any fear as he smashed his fist against the tip of the staff. Bang! A horrifying sound rang out. Cracks appeared on the wind cloud platform again. Boundless dragon qi poured out. The dragon roar resounded endlessly in the strong wind. Xiao Qin vomited a mouthful of blood and took 10 steps back in midair. The wooden staff that contained the power of the world actually took a small step back before the crowd's astonished gazes. How can this be? The tossing heaven and earth was actually knocked back. When the cultivators in the spectator stands saw this shocking scene, they could not help but stand up. However, Sima Lingxian said indifferently, the power of the world is long-lasting. How can it be knocked back so easily? Indeed, the heavy wooden staff that had been knocked back by half a meter flew out of the air a moment later, carrying an even stronger power of the world, heading for Xiao Chen. A bright light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. He said, "So, that's how it is." Again. When facing the incoming staff, Xiao Chen did not hesitate to circulate all the energy in his body. Then, he sent out another berserk dragon fist. The power of the world flowed like a river from the tip of the staff towards Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen vomited a large mouthful of blood. However, he did not care. He clenched his left fist and punched again in an instant. Chapter 579. Bang! 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 Sounds even louder than thunder resounded continuously. Using his own strength, Xiao Chen merged his vital qi and essence as he clashed with the wooden staff that carried the power of the world. The world spun around, and the entire wind cloud arena started shaking. Before everyone's astonished gazes, Xiao Chen blocked the unparalleled sharpness and unparalleled might of the tossing heaven and earth technique. Xiao Chen's qi and blood surged, and wounds appeared in his internal organs. However, his expression remained calm. If I want to win, I have to be ruthless. I have to be more ruthless than my enemy and even more ruthless to myself. Xiao Chen only had one thought in his heart, to keep attacking, to keep attacking. If you use the power of the heavens, I will shatter the heavens with one punch. If you use the power of the earth, I will shatter the earth with one punch. The heavens, the earth, cannot stop me. Xiao Chen shouted ferociously, and the 24 acupoints on his hands opened. 2 blue dragon tattoos slowly surged, and the might of the berserk dragon fist increased by another 20%. Xiao Chen moved his fists as fast as lightning. No afterimages could be seen. 1 punch, 2 punches, 3 punches, a total of 81 punches. Xiao Chen's complexion was already so pale that it was devoid of blood. The wooden staff that carried the power of the world finally exploded with a bang. Wooden shavings filled the air, containing the boundless power of the world. They formed a horrifying shock wave. Xiao Chen, who could not react in time, crashed into the wind cloud barrier. Xiao Chen suppressed the injuries in his body and stomped heavily on the wind cloud barrier. As the shock wave surged, Xiao Chen's tattered white robes fluttered like catkin. He gently waved his left hand, and the lunar shadow saber in the air returned to his grasp. Xiao Chen turned around slightly and landed on the ground. He drew his saber and placed the pitch-black saber on the defenseless Gong Yangyu's neck. Xiao Chen's long hair, which had long been disheveled, fluttered in the strong wind. His tattered clear wind robes flapped noisily, giving the originally delicate and pretty Xiao Chen a wild and unruly temperament. Under martial monarch, who dared to fight against heaven and earth alone? Not only did Xiao Chen dare to fight, but he also miraculously emerged victorious. Even inferior grade martial monarchs did not dare to receive the tossing heaven and earth head-on. Just like that, Gong Yangyu of the Supreme Yi sect was defeated. He was defeated by a bladesman who was only ranked 9th on the newcomer ranking list. Furthermore, he had been defeated in such a decisive manner, without the slightest bit of underhandedness or trickery. This battle had been full of twists and turns. The spectators were overwhelmed with emotions. Now that it had ended so quickly, the cultivators in the spectator stands had yet to recover their wits. After forcefully executing the tossing heaven and earth, Gong Yangyu's mind was already extremely weak. Furthermore, his final move had been forcefully broken by Xiao Chen, adding injuries to his previous injuries. He was now extremely weak. When Gong Yangyu saw the cold saber on his neck, he revealed a bitter smile. He raised his right hand and slowly pushed the saber to the side. He said, "Gong Yangyu is not skilled enough. Many thanks for your guidance." A defeat was a defeat. Gong Yangyu appeared very carefree. He did not make any excuses. After saying that he was not skilled enough, he smiled bitterly and walked off the arena. Gong Yangyu was defeated. The 9th-ranked Supreme Sect giant of the previous 5-nation youth competition had lost to a newcomer. In the spectator stands, several cultivators were still savoring the details of the battle. When they saw Gong Yangyu's somewhat desolate figure, they realized that Gong Yangyu had been defeated. In this 5-nation youth competition, Xiao Chen was the first person to defeat a youth giant. Furthermore, he was a newcomer participating in the competition for the first time. There are many strong people. I originally thought that Gong Yangyu would end Xiao Chen's winning streak. Who knew that Gong Yangyu would become Xiao Chen's stepping stone, allowing Xiao Chen's fame to soar? Even Gong Yangyu is not a match for him. In that case, who can end his winning streak? Can only the geniuses of the 8 noble clans do it? That is hard to say. Xiao Chen has not fought with Lin Fei yet. Lin Fei has only revealed the tip of the iceberg. Perhaps Lin Fei can defeat Xiao Chen. Ha ha. In that case, do you think that Xiao Chen used his full power? When the cultivators in the spectator stand saw Xiao Chen get off the arena, they all had a different opinion of Xiao Chen's strength. They now viewed him as a giant of the younger generation. In this most dazzling 5-nation youth competition, Xiao Chen possessed the strength to rank within the top 10. He was only inferior to Bai Qi, Sima Lingxian, and Xianyuan Zhantian. Xiao Chen might even have a good chance of getting into the top 5, becoming the most dazzling dark horse in this 5-nation youth competition. The dazzling Xiao Chen returned to his spectator stand, feeling extremely fatigued. He immediately sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes to treat his injuries. Xiao Chen had suffered significant internal injuries in this battle. It would be an exaggeration to say that he had suffered 800 casualties. However, he had still suffered 500 casualties. Don't move. I'll personally treat your injuries. A gentle voice came from behind. It was the half-sage of Jade Maiden Peak, Shin Manjun. She had personally made a move, using her own cultivation to treat Xiao Chen's injuries. Jade Maiden Peak was the peak of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's alchemy peak. Shin Manjun was an ancient figure of Jade Maiden Peak. Her treatment was much faster than Xiao Chen's. Xiao Chen did not show any intention of stopping her. He allowed her vast quintessence to slowly pour into his body. There were still many tough battles to fight. Naturally, it would be for the best if a senior helped him. As for Gong Yangyu, he received better treatment than Xiao Chen. A few Supreme Sect inner sect elders worked together to treat his injuries. His recovery was much faster than Xiao Chen's. After 15 minutes, Shin Manjun withdrew her hand and gently wiped the sweat off her forehead. She smiled and said, "Cultivators who cultivate the physical body are indeed different. Even with such heavy injuries, you can recover so quickly." Xiao Chen vomited a mouthful of blood and immediately felt much better. He turned his head and said, "Many thanks to Martial Grand Uncle for helping me. Xiao Chen is very grateful." Jiang Qi, who was at the side, laughed loudly and said, "Xiao Chen, there is no need to be so polite. Just focus on the competition." The fact that Xiao Chen could defeat Gong Yangyu had far surpassed Jiang Qi's expectations. Originally, he only wanted Xiao Chen to rank within the top 50, allowing the Heavenly Saber Pavilion to bask in the limelight of this great age. However, now, Jiang Qi could no longer see through Xiao Chen's potential. The pleasant surprise that Xiao Chen brought him was simply unimaginable. The nearby Great Qin Nation cultivators looked in the direction of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Their gazes were filled with envy. After this 5-nation youth competition, it was clear that the Heavenly Saber Pavilion would rise up. Shin Manjun said seriously, "Although your physique is much stronger than regular cultivators, you still have some hidden injuries. Remember to deal with them after the competition ends." Xiao Chen nodded to indicate that he understood. Naturally, he could not completely recover from his injuries in such a short time. In the distance, Lin Fei, who had just defeated his opponent, looked at Xiao Chen, who was resting with his eyes closed. Lin Fei grasped his saber's hilt tightly with his right hand, and a strong fighting spirit burned in his eyes. He said, "You have a winning streak." Even Gong Yangyu lost to you. It is only interesting to defeat such an opponent. Lin Fei did not know what trump cards he had, but he was still very confident when facing Xiao Chen, who had displayed great strength. He did not show any fear at all. In the spectator stands for the seated participants, Sima Lingxian glanced at Xiao Chen. Then, he silently repeated Xiao Chen's name. White-robed bladesman, Xiao Chen. Very good. In this five-nation youth competition, there is another person that I will remember. I only remember your name. That does not mean that you have the strength to fight me. That is all. A strong self-confidence spread in Sima Lingxuan's heart. He smiled faintly and closed his eyes again. The Bai clan's scion, Bai Qi, was the leader of the young bladesmen under the starry heavens. When he saw Xiao Chen defeat Gong Yangyu, a fiery light burned in his eyes. He smiled faintly and said, "First, there is Lin Fei. Now, there is Xiao Chen. This lifeless world of bladesmen finally has a few new talents." With all the seated participants taking the stage, the second round of eliminations did not lack highlights. The moment Xiao Chen's and Gong Yangyu's match ended, everyone's attention shifted to another match. That was the dueling ring of Group 1. There were many experts in the group that the top newcomer, Xianyuan Zhantian, was in. Aside from Xianyuan Zhantian, there were also many personal disciples of the 10 great sects in this group. It was known as the Group of Death. The drifting snow sword sect's Lu Xiaoyun chose this group. He wanted to challenge the top newcomer, Xianyuan Zhantian, and trample him to the ground. At this moment, the matches in Group 1 were very exciting. They were no weaker than Xiao Chen's and Gong Yangyu's match. However, the main characters were not Lu Xiaoyun and Xianyuan Zhantian. Lu Xiaoyun's opponent was a swordsman from the Great Qin nation, a swordsman who seemed to be very low profile. Even though this swordsman was ranked third on the newcomer ranking list and had an unending string of victories, his battles did not attract much attention. Compared to Lin Fei, who was also a newcomer, he was far from being the center of attention. This was because every one of Lin Fei's victories was too ordinary. There was nothing astonishing about them, giving others the impression that he was just that ordinary. Now that Lin Fei met Lu Xiaoyun, the defeat that everyone expected did not happen. Although they were both swordsmen, Lin Fei's sword intent and sword techniques were no weaker than Lu Xiaoyun's. That ordinary swordsmanship suddenly became incomparably exquisite in the eyes of the crowd. Every move was extremely gorgeous, and it shocked everyone, causing them to click their tongues in admiration. There was a kind of person in this world who did not shine with dazzling light and attract everyone's attention. It was not because his light was dim and unnoticeable. Instead, it was because his light was too dazzling. Regular leaves would not be able to bring out his strength. One could only wait for a suitable leaf to appear. Only then did the crowd discover how beautiful that fresh flower was. That light shone brightly, spreading for thousands of kilometers. Without a doubt, Chu Chaoyun was such a person. Up until now, no one had noticed his brilliance because his opponents were not even qualified to be his supporting characters. Chu Chaoyun's handsome face always had a calm expression. He brandished his sword, breaking all of Lu Xiaoyun's killing moves with every move. Chong! 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 The sound of weapons clashing rang out and sparks flew. Lu Xiaoyun's attack was thwarted again. His figure flickered back a few times and he could not help but increase the force in his right hand. Lu Xiaoyun frowned heavily as he looked at his opponent. Clearly, he had not expected there to be such a difficult person in Group 1. Chapter 580. Who? Under the influence of Lu Xiaoyun's state of ice, the entire wind cloud platform was covered in frost. The cold was bone-chilling. A cold wind blew everywhere like knives. The horrifying chill made several of the cultivators in the spectator stands feel it even from a distance. Clearly, Lu Xiaoyun's comprehension of the state of ice had already reached a level that his peers could only look up to. Across Lu Xiaoyun, Chu Chaoyun held a 1-meter-long sword. The sword gave off a dazzling golden light. His entire body gave off a faint golden glow, expelling the boundless chill without holding back. The crowd could clearly see strands of white fog drifting around Chu Chaoyun, reflecting a seven-colored light. That was the state of ice trying to penetrate into him. However, the strong state of light blocked it, not having any effect. Chu Chaoyun casually sent out a sword flower. As the golden light scattered, it shot out in all directions, dazzling everyone. Unknowingly, the state of ice weakened significantly. Since you are not attacking, then I will. Before everyone's astonished gazes, Xiaochen faced Lu Xiaoyun, who was ranked in the top 10 of the previous 5-nation youth competition, a rare genius of the drifting snow sword sect. The newcomer, Chu Chaoyun, gave up on defending and directly charged forward, charging over with a dazzling sword light. Lu Xiaoyun said coldly, "Ignorant. Do you really think that I cannot do anything to you? Since you are seeking death, I will grant you your wish." Lu Xiaoyun was not boasting. This was because he did not care about anyone in his group. In his eyes, aside from Xianyuan Zhantian, no one was worthy of him going all out. Before Lu Xiaoyun met Xianyuan Zhantian, he had to preserve some of his strength. Otherwise, when he faced Xianyuan Zhantian or the scions of the 8 noble clans, he would not have any trump cards left. He, Lu Xiaoyun, did not just set his sights on the top 10. Lu Xiaoyun shouted ferociously and raised his strength to 60%. His aura instantly soared by 10%. As the cold wind blew, snowflakes drifted down from the sky. Pushing off the air with the tip of his foot, he gathered the surrounding cold chi onto the tip of his sword. The sword turned transparent, looking like it was carved out of 1,000-year-old ice. Chu Chaoyun's body gave off a bright light. His clothes and accessories were golden, and his hair contained a golden light that fluttered in the air. Bang! The dazzling golden longsword and the frost-covered longsword carried two completely different concepts. In the blink of an eye, they collided violently in the air. The two of them displayed their exquisite swordsmanship and quickly exchanged blows in midair. In the span of a few breaths, each of them had unleashed dozens of sword strikes. A cold wind blew, and a dazzling light shone. 2 strands of sword chi, one white and one yellow, flew everywhere. The sword chi was so condensed that it was shocking. Each strand of sword chi seemed to be material. From afar, it seemed as if it had sliced space into countless pieces. Separated by the wind-cloud barrier, everyone could only see 2 figures clashing in a blurry space. The sound of metal clashing resounded without end. This is a competition of sword techniques, sword intent, and states. Unexpectedly, the two of them are able to take care of so many important points with every move. Indeed. As long as one is slightly weaker than the other party, they will immediately lose. Sword techniques, sword intent, and states. Only by taking care of all 3 can one become a true expert of the sword Dao. However, based on Lu Xiaoyun's appearance, it seems like he has not used his full power yet. He probably wants to keep some trump cards to deal with Xianyuan Zhantian. The cultivators watching discussed the fight on the wind cloud platform in soft voices. Several swordsmen did not even blink. A battle between 2 geniuses of the sword Dao was a rare sight. If one could comprehend something from it, it would definitely be beneficial to their sword Dao. The two of them clashed. Cold ice and boundless light exploded. When the ice refracted the golden light, it turned into a 7-colored light: scarlet, orange, yellow, green, azure, blue, and purple. The wind cloud platform was filled with many colors, like a paradise in the mortal world. Under the 7-colored light, Lu Xiaoyun and Chu Chaoyun looked like immortals flying down from the heavens. The 7-colored shockwave from the explosion forced the two of them back a few steps. Lu Xiaoyun forcefully stopped his retreat and stopped before Chu Chaoyun. Rage of 1,000 soldiers. Seizing the initiative, Lu Xiaoyun did not hesitate to execute his killing move. His sword danced around, and suddenly, furious roars resounded. It was like thousands of emotionless swordsmen roared in unison, forming a boundless aura behind Lu Xiaoyun. His sword drew on this aura, and an overwhelming sword intent surged towards Lu Xiaoyun. The cold wind did not howl, and the snowflakes did not dance. There was only this unparalleled sword strike that carried the surging rage of thousands of swordsmen. Even when Lu Xiaoyun saw his opponent execute his killing move, he did not forcefully stop his body. Instead, he drifted far away with the shock wave. Chu Qiaoyun smiled faintly and gently released his right hand. His sword pointed at Lu Xiaoyun as it floated quietly in front of him. Xiaoqin stretched his right hand upwards, and it seemed like he was touching something calm in the air. While it looked slow, it was actually extremely fast. Ka! 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 As Xiaoqian's hand moved, golden sword images appeared in an orderly fashion. Every time a golden sword image appeared, an incomparably melodious sword hum resounded. The sound was melodious and pleasing to the ear. A righteous qi rushed into the clouds together with the moving sword sound, stirring up the thick dark clouds in the sky and causing them to churn endlessly. When the circle formed by Xiao Chen's hand, a circle of sword images formed with the sword hovering before Chu Qiaoyun's chest as the center instantly formed. Boom! Ding! Ding! Dang! Dang! The melodious sword hum merged together, and a strong righteous qi tore through the clouds. A golden pillar of light descended from the sky, piercing through the wind cloud barrier and encasing Chu Qiaoyun. Bathed in the golden light, Chu Qiaoyun's aura instantly soared to its peak. The light was dazzling and eye-catching. It clashed intensely with Lu Xiaoyun's unparalleled aura in the air. Chu Qiaoyun did not give way, he even seemed to have the upper hand. Pa! Chu Qiaoyun smashed his palm on the sword hilt in the circle of swords. Strangely, the crowd saw the wind cloud platform tremble a little. A resplendent golden sword light shot towards Lu Xiaoyun, who was flying over, along with the force of this palm strike. The golden light contained a vast righteous qi. Lu Xiaoyun paled slightly. His overwhelming sword intent, formed by the roars of thousands of iron-faced swordsmen, actually showed a small opening before this golden light. Without giving Lu Xiaoyun a chance to react or make up for it, the sword in the circle of swords shot over. Ka xie! Ka xie! The originally negligible opening quickly expanded under the might of this sword. The overwhelming sword intent finally shattered. Helpless, Lu Xiaoyun could only scatter the state and aura of this unparalleled sword. Then, he sheathed his sword and turned around to block the incoming sword. Dang! Lu Xiaoyun vomited a mouthful of blood. The force of this sword knocked him back and he fell heavily to the ground. Damn it! If 60% of my strength cannot deal with you, then 70%. Lu Xiaoyun, who was on the ground, roared ferociously in his heart. His aura increased by another 10%. Then, he soared into the air and charged at Chu Qiaoyun. Bathed in the golden light, Chu Qiaoyun smiled faintly as he looked at the incoming Lu Xiaoyun. He gently waved his hand, and the circle of light formed by the golden sword images opened. Dozens of golden swords of light sent out a sword storm. Bang! 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 Amidst the boundless storm and the thousands of sword images, Lu Xiaoyun's sword danced around. He only managed to block for a moment before the storm covered him in wounds and knocked him back. If 70% of my strength is not enough, then 80%. At this moment, Lu Xiaoyun's expression was extremely unsightly. His originally elegant aura was gone. Xiaoqin gently waved his right hand, and the sword in the air returned to his grasp. Grasping the sword in his hand tightly, Chu Qiaoyun felt the strong energy in the sword. He did not move a single step in the air as sword lights danced around. Instantly, thousands of figures appeared around the golden pillar of light, holding swords in their hands. These figures danced around, and an overwhelming sword intent spread out without any fear. Thousands of sword intents spread out at the same time. It was simply too strong. The wind cloud platform below the pillar of light could no longer withstand it. A crack appeared, and dragon qi leaked out. Immediately, a resonant dragon roar resounded. When the dragon roar resounded, Chu Qiaoyun held his sword and paused for a moment. The thousands of figures immediately vanished, and all the sword intent gathered on his sword. Bang! When Xiaoqin swung his sword, the overwhelming sword intent formed by thousands of figures surged out. Lu Xiaoyun, who had just gotten up, was knocked back again. If 80% of my strength is not enough, then 90%. Lu Xiaoyun roared ferociously. He had no intention of admitting defeat. He pushed off the ground and charged over with an even stronger aura. Chu Qiaoyun's expression was extremely calm. He held his sword above his head with both hands and hacked down ferociously as he watched Lu Xiaoyun get up. Boom! A loud sound rang out. The golden light descending from the sky actually followed Chu Qiaoyun's attack and quickly descended, turning into a huge strand of sword qi. The sword light was like a pillar as it descended on Lu Xiaoyun's head. Lu Xiaoyun resisted for a moment before vomiting a mouthful of blood and falling to the ground again. If 90% of my strength is not enough, then 100%. At this moment, Lu Xiaoyun had already gone completely berserk. 1 sword strike, 2 sword strikes, 3 sword strikes, 4 sword strikes. However, this time, Chu Qiaoyun did not give Lu Xiaoyun a chance to get up. This was beyond Lu Xiaoyun's expectations. Chu Qiaoyun took the initiative to attack. His figure flickered, and his sword sent out 4 sword lights. The sword qi injured Lu Xiaoyun's knees and wrists, causing blood to flow out. Pa! Lu Xiaoyun fell to the ground. With his knees and wrists injured, he could not even stand up. As he lay on the ground, he looked up at Chu Qiaoyun with extreme dissatisfaction. Lu Xiaoyun's reputation had been tarnished, and he had lost all his face. This was a tragic sight to behold. Ruthless. Truly ruthless. When the hundreds of thousands of spectators saw this scene, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Their hearts tightened. With his knees injured, he could not stand up. With his wrists injured, he could not even push himself off the ground. After Lu Xiaoyun fell to the ground, he could no longer get up on his own. Not only could he not get up, but he could not even move. He was a proud disciple of the Drifting Snow Sword sect, a giant of the younger generation. Unexpectedly, the 10th-ranked super genius of the previous 5-nation youth competition ended up in such a state. Chu Qiaoyun was too ruthless. Furthermore, when Chu Qiaoyun saw Lu Xiaoyun's expression of extreme dissatisfaction, he did not feel uncomfortable at all. He remained as calm as before. Chapter 581. Xiaoqin did not feel any excitement from defeating a super genius. He also did not feel that there was anything wrong with his attack. In his eyes, these super sects, peerless geniuses, and all the other halos were not worth mentioning. They were just as so-so. As Xiaoqin looked at Lu Xiaoyun on the ground, he did not feel that Chu Qiaoyun's attack was ruthless or not. It was just the most suitable move at that moment. Every time Lu Xiaoyun was knocked back, his strength would increase by 10%. If this continued, no one knew when it would end. Perhaps the next time, Lu Xiaoyun would be able to truly threaten Chu Qiaoyun. The victor of this match would be someone else. Crippling Lu Xiaoyun's limbs was undoubtedly the best solution. Furthermore, by then, Lu Xiaoyun would have already formed a habit. Every time Chu Qiaoyun gave Lu Xiaoyun a chance to get up, he did not attack when Lu Xiaoyun got up. This gave Lu Xiaoyun the impression that Xiaoqin would not attack him while he was getting up. Perhaps Lu Xiaoyun did not have the ability to do so and did not dare to fight in close combat. Who knew, Chu Qiaoyun did not only have the ability to do so, but he also had the courage to do so. With such courage, the right opportunity, and the right way to make a move, everything seemed to make sense. The Sun Moon Sword Sect's disciple, who was also a genius of the Sword Dao, looked up angrily at the extremely dissatisfied Lu Xiaoyun. He could not help but sigh in his heart. He muttered to himself, "I have to remember this lesson. I cannot let my guard down at any time. I cannot underestimate any newcomer." Li Daoxian, the scion of the 8 noble clans famous for his spear techniques, smiled coldly and said, if he had used his full strength earlier, he would not have ended up like this. Lu Xiaoyun overestimated himself. Bai Qi, who was not far away, felt the same way. In the end, Lu Xiaoyun completely lost his composure. He could not even deal with the battle before him, yet he still wanted to save some strength to deal with Xianyuan Zhantian. Sima Lingxian, who was in the seated spectator stands, could not even be bothered to look at Lu Xiaoyun. He spat out coldly, "Trash." After the referee announced the result of the match, the drifting snow sword sex people immediately came and carried Lu Xiaoyun off. When the Misty Sword Sex sect master saw Chu Chaoyun slowly walking over, he smiled like a flower. Then, he looked at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's Jiang Qi complacently. The surrounding elders were all very happy. Even Lu Xiaoyun, who was in the top 10, had been defeated by Chu Chaoyun. Did that not mean that the Sword Sect had the qualifications to fight for the top 10 as well? How incredible! Unexpectedly, two dark horses appeared in the tiny Great Qin nation. First, Shaoqin defeated Gong Yangyu. Now, Chu Chaoyun defeated Lu Xiaoyun. This is too much of a coincidence. That Lu Xiaoyun is really depressed. He was filled with lofty aspirations and wanted to challenge Xianyuan Zhantian. Who knew, before he could even meet Xianyuan Zhantian, he would be defeated. The most important thing is that Lu Xiaoyun lost so miserably, losing all his face. He could not even stand up and was beaten up like a dead dog. The new talents of this round are indeed too strong. The age of geniuses is indeed full of heroes. First, there is Xianyuan Zhantian, who dared to compete with Sima Lingxian. Then, there is Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun. Now, there is Lin Fei and the others. After all, this was just a competition. The victor was king. Chu Chaoyun won fairly and openly. No one would slander him. They only sighed, the speed at which the new talents of the younger generation rose was too fast. In this age of geniuses, several veteran experts would lose their reputation if they were not careful. They would be used as a stepping stone for the newcomers, allowing them to soar into the sky and become famous everywhere. Stars twinkled, heroes emerged. If the competition was not cruel and intense, it would not be the age of geniuses. The competition continued. After that, the scions of the 8 noble clans, aside from Sima Lingxian, went up one by one. This gave the crowd a taste of Emperor Wu's elegance. The scion of the Li clan, who was famous for his spear techniques, was like a flood dragon emerging from the sea. As he brandished his spear, it sounded like a berserk dragon roaring. Just the vast state of water made everyone feel boundless. The scion of the Wang clan, Wang Quan, who was good at using the whip, wielded a black whip. It moved unpredictably, changing in many ways. It was both hard and soft. With just one whip, it left a deep mark on the wind cloud platform. There was also the scion of the Baiming clan, Baiming Shang, who was unrivaled in palm techniques. Even the evil moon pavilions by Zhan could not last more than 5 moves against him. After they went up, they were all unrivaled. In this second round of elimination, they did not meet any opponents who could defeat them. The strength that they displayed suppressed the limelight of the 2 new talents, Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun. However, the most eye-catching was the Bai clan's Bai Qi. The exquisite saber techniques that he displayed could be described as superb. As the runner-up of the previous 5-nation youth competition, one could clearly feel that his aura was stronger than the other scions of the noble clans. The only regret was that while all the cultivators wanted to see the true appearance of the 4-season saber technique, no one had been able to force Bai Qi to such a degree. This also proved Bai Qi's strength. Even without using the 4-season saber technique, he was already so strong. If he used the 4-season saber technique, he would be even more powerful. Many experts went up one by one. There were all sorts of exciting battles and wondrous martial techniques. This broadened the horizons of several cultivators, making this trip worthwhile. However, there were also people who stood out from the crowd. Their fame spread far and wide. Furthermore, they kept on winning, gaining even more attention than the scions. Naturally, that person was Kim Tae-ho. Along the way, this fellow relied on his coffin lid and all sorts of shameless moves. Unexpectedly, he managed to obtain consecutive victories as a mere peak superior grade martial king. Xiao Qin became an anomaly in this five-nation youth competition, surprising everyone. That coffin lid also caused the dissatisfaction of several participants. They felt that it was an offensive secret treasure. In the end, the city lord personally came out to inspect it and verified that it was not an offensive secret treasure. Only then did the crowd calm down. Later on, when Xiao Qin met with scions that he clearly could not defeat, Fatso laughed loudly and waved his hand, choosing to forfeit. This made several participants who wanted to see him get beaten up extremely angry. They cursed Fatso for being shameless. For now, no matter how shameless Fatso was, there was another match on the Wind Cloud platform that everyone had been anticipating for a long time. The match between Yu Chenxi and Nangong Ziyue was finally about to begin. In an instant, all the gazes in the spectator stands focused on the dueling ring for Group 7, watching the two valiant and formidable-looking girls. The duels in the other dueling rings were much dimmer. Even the matches of the scions did not attract much attention. The reason for this was because the two girls in the dueling ring were simply too dazzling. Aside from their outstanding strength, they were also very beautiful. That was why they attracted everyone's attention. In this brilliant five-nation youth competition, it was very rare to see a girl. Since ancient times, people had always believed that fighting was a matter for men. However, Yu Chenxi and Nangong Ziyue overturned this view. Women were not inferior to men. Even several of the male participants could not compare to them. They could only chase after the two of them from afar. These two women both cultivated fist techniques, both had peerlessly beautiful appearances, and both were shockingly talented. Everyone was very curious about who was stronger and who was weaker. The Haotian sect's Yu Chenxi was only ranked within the top 30 in the previous five-nation youth competition. However, he rose up strongly in this five-nation youth competition. In the intense preliminaries, Yu Chenxi had pushed out the Nangong noble clan's Nangong Ziyue and obtained the seated spot, catching everyone's attention. Given Nangong Ziyue's pride as a noble clan disciple, she would definitely not let such a thing happen. She would definitely think of a way to reclaim the glory that belonged to her. Nangong Ziyue and Yu Chenxi would definitely have to fight. Now, the two of them finally stood together on the Wind Cloud platform. In a corner of the arena, Nangong Ziyue looked at the graceful and beautiful Yu Chenxi. She said calmly, "Bring out your full strength. Otherwise, you will lose very quickly. I did not even bring out half of my strength in the preliminaries." Yu Chenxi smiled gently and retorted, "That will depend on whether you have the ability or not. Should I tell you that I did not even bring out 40% of my strength?" There was no point in saying anything more. Naturally, a verbal exchange would not determine who was the true victor. Fight! Nangong Ziyue did not say anything. After she assumed the stance of the immortal mountains and rivers fist, she immediately flew towards Yu Chenxi. As Nangong Ziyue moved, the sound of flowing water could be heard. The mountains around her rose and fell, layered over each other. In the blink of an eye, she materialized the power of mountains and rivers as she punched. When Nangong Ziyue punched, the mountains did not move and the water did not flow. The power of mountains and rivers gathered on her fist. Combined with her essence, she punched the air and the vast wind cloud platform trembled. The sound of Nangong Ziyue's fist was like thunder, shaking the surroundings. Yu Chenxi took a step forward with his right foot and clenched his right fist tightly. He had a cautious expression on his pretty face. Clearly, he did not dare to underestimate this punch. However, Yu Chenxi did not show any fear. When he faced this punch that caused even space to tremble, he sent out a punch as well. The instant the two fists clashed, Nangong Ziyue's power of mountains and rivers pressed over without holding anything back. In that instant, the mountains rose and fell, and the water flowed rapidly. A boundless power surged over. Explode! With a shout, Yu Chenxi's slightly sunken body suddenly stood up. A dazzling light burst out from his fist. That light was resplendent and dazzling, like the morning sun breaking through the darkness of dawn. The light spread far and wide, illuminating the mountains and rivers for thousands of kilometers. Layers upon layers of mountain peaks were instantly covered in golden light. Even the rapidly flowing water was sparkling under the light. When Bai Mingxiang, who had doubted Yu Chenxi's strength earlier, saw this scene, he was somewhat astonished. He said, "What boldness! Others break this state of mountains and rivers with a single point. This Yu Chenxi actually wants to destroy the entire state of mountains and rivers in one breath, thoroughly defeating Nangong Ziyue." Bang! Bang! The two boundless punches clashed intensely at this moment. The entire wind-cloud platform trembled uncontrollably. The surrounding wind-cloud barrier rippled continuously, neutralizing the impact of the shock waves. One side used the power of mountains and rivers, while the other used the power of the rising sun. Neither was an ordinary state. There were differences in power as well. For example, one person used the power of a river, while the other used the power of an ocean. It was clear whose state was stronger. However, the larger the state, the harder it was to grasp it perfectly. The harder it was to control it, the more openings there would be. It was a great test of a cultivator's talent. Chapter 582. Without sufficient talent and strength to control the vast ocean, one might not even be able to deal with a cultivator who used a small pool. This was because other people's states were perfect, but one's state was full of flaws. If one clashed head-on, one's state would immediately crumble. Yu Chenxi and Nangong Ziyue were clearly super geniuses. Their states were grand and imposing. However, they were very familiar with controlling them, there were no obvious flaws. Light exploded, mountains moved up and down, and waves roared ferociously. Soon, the two exchanged hundreds of moves. The huge energy fluctuations caused cracks to appear on the wind-cloud platform, leaking out strands of dragon qi. Every punch of Nangong Ziyue's carried the momentum of the entire state of mountains and rivers. When she punched, it was like an entire mountain range pressing down. Yu Chenxi did not back down at all. She executed the morning sun incantation to its limits. Clouds and mist spread out. Every punch gave off a bright light, knocking back the mountains pressing over. The strong state of clouds and state of light complemented each other. When combined with the morning sun fist, it was boundlessly ferocious, not losing to the other party's state of mountains and rivers. When the cultivators in the spectator stands saw this, they sighed in admiration. Unexpectedly, the strength that these two pretty and charming girls could erupt with was so strong. That kind of shocking strength made many male cultivators sigh in admiration. This is too horrifying. Just one punch is already so strong. I'm afraid I can only receive 3 punches at most. Ha ha. Keep bragging. If you really use your fist to receive them, I guarantee that you will not even be able to receive half a punch. Those are all great states. That's right. In terms of strength, the mountains and rivers are immortal, and the morning sun breaks. They are sufficient to rank in the top 5 of all the participants. As the crowd discussed, the competition on the platform became even more intense. Dragon qi spread out, and dragon roars resounded without end. Yu Chenxi had already turned the situation around, taking the initiative. As the morning sun shone down, a rainbow bridge appeared in the sky. She stood on the rainbow bridge, moving gracefully like a fairy from the heavens. Clouds lingered behind her. When she punched out, there would always be a light breaking through the clouds. Golden fist winds rained down on Nangong Ziyue, who was on the ground. Walala! The water flowed without a trace, and the mountains and rivers flowed leisurely for thousands of kilometers. Nangong Ziyue's tight purple robes could not hide her exquisite figure as she walked among the mountains and rivers. Looking at the lush green scenery of the mountains, listening to the graceful murmur of the flowing water, walking between the mountains and rivers, one's heart was as calm as still water, and the fist peak also became reserved. The golden light that descended from the sky shattered one by one. Specks of light fell and disappeared along with the flowing water. But this momentary silence was not for the sake of eternal silence, but for the sake of a momentary eruption. At that time, the mountains would dance, the rivers would roar, and the mountains and rivers would remain immortal for all eternity. After another 100 moves, Nangong Ziyue shouted ferociously. The calm flowing water and the peaceful mountain suddenly moved. Bang, bang, bang. The flowing water roared, and pillars of water shot into the sky. The mountains danced, shaking the heavens and the earth, and the universe was overturned. Carrying this boundless aura, Nangong Ziyue soared into the sky amidst the mysterious phenomenon of the water pillars filling the sky. Then, she flew towards Yu Chenxi, who was shrouded in clouds, on the heavenly bridge. Ka-xie! Ka-xie! Before Nangong Ziyue arrived, before the fist wind arrived, her aura already shattered the seven-colored bridge in the sky, turning it into beams of multicolored light that scattered down. One punch as a mountain, one punch as a river. The mountains and rivers for thousands of kilometers will remain immortal for all eternity. The seas and the surroundings will exist for me alone. Nangong Ziyue's tyrannical aura that had flashed in the past appeared again, looking proud and arrogant. Amid the clouds, Yu Chenxi smiled gently. He completely activated the morning sun incantation, which had been raised to the 13th layer by the daybreak flower. Xiao! In that instant, the entire sky suddenly turned dark. Night fell, and the surging darkness was boundless. At this moment, time seemed to slow down. Every move of Nangong Ziyue's extremely fast punch became very clear to the eyes of the crowd. After some time, perhaps it was an instant, perhaps it was 100 years. The morning sun leaped up from the east. In an instant, it gave off a bright light, and the entire world turned bright again. In contrast to the dark night, the morning sun appeared even more dazzling, boundlessly resplendent. The state of the morning sun breaking. Only after experiencing true darkness and rising from the ashes could the state of the morning sun become perfect and flawless. Only then could it shine bright light over thousands of kilometers of mountains and rivers. Under the fiery red morning sun, the instant the final trace of darkness was torn apart, the elegant Yu Chenxi clashed with Nangong Ziyue's immortal mountains and rivers fist. Boom! 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 The instant the fists clashed, the tall mountains behind Nangong Ziyue collapsed. The never-ending flowing water also formed a whirlpool with this punch, completely stopping. The mountains shattered, the water broke, and the mountains and rivers came to an end. Nangong Ziyue vomited a mouthful of blood. Her tyrannical aura that looked proud and arrogant vanished under the illumination of the morning sun. Only now did Nangong Ziyue reveal the frailty of a little girl. She fell to the ground like a willow catkin. Dragon chi spread across the vast wind cloud platform, and dragon roars resounded without end. Although the morning sun in the sky had already dimmed significantly, it still rose proudly, shining its light in all directions. Yu Chenxi gently waved his hand, and the dim morning sun behind him immediately scattered. Then, he wiped the blood from the corner of his lips and slowly floated down. The cracks on the wind cloud platform on the ground slowly healed. As the dragon chi dissipated, the dragon roars also slowly disappeared. The pale Nangong Ziyue looked at Yu Chenxi and said softly, "You won. It is indeed not a coincidence that you managed to snatch away my seated spot. Can I ask, how much of your strength did you bring out?" Nangong Ziyue's question was clearly the question of several people. The other scions of the 8 noble clans all perked up their ears and looked over. Shao Qin had defeated Nangong Ziyue. The 8 noble clans' history of monopolizing the top 8 spots of the 5-nation youth competition would be broken. The strength that Yu Chenxi displayed was already a threat to them. After all, Shao Qin and Chu Chaoyun had only defeated the disciples of the 10 great sections. However, Yu Chenxi had defeated Nangong Ziyue. In terms of results, Yu Chenxi was better than Shao Qin and Chu Chaoyun. Hence, he attracted more attention. Yu Chenxi was not pretentious. She did not have any grudges with Nangong Ziyue. Furthermore, they were both female cultivators. They both admired each other's strength, so she directly told Nangong Ziyue. However, Yu Chenxi used her essence and projected her voice. She only told Nangong Ziyue, disappointing the others. When Nangong Ziyue heard that, she smiled beautifully and left the wind cloud platform alone. Senior brother Shao Chen, how much of Yu Chenxi's strength do you think he used? Lu Suifeng, who was beside Shao Chen, asked out of curiosity. It was not just Lu Suifeng. All the spectating cultivators were discussing this topic. However, they did not dare to come to a conclusion. Some said that Yu Chenxi only used 60%. This was because Nangong Ziyue had been utterly defeated. Even though her immortal mountains and rivers technique had shattered, the rising sun did not scatter. There were also some who said that Yu Chenxi used her full strength. This was because the immortal mountains and rivers fist was so mighty. How could she only use 60% of her strength? Shao Chen had his own judgment. He muttered, about 80%. Their strengths are actually about the same. If Yu Chenxi had only used 60% of his strength, she would have been severely injured in the earlier hundreds of moves. She was able to obtain victory mostly because of her advantage in states. In the end, Nangong Ziyue's immortal mountains and rivers technique is not perfect. However, Yu Chenxi's rising sun technique is infinitely close to perfection. Lu Suifeng nodded, not fully understanding. Then, he asked, infinitely close to perfection? What do you mean? Glancing at Yu Chenxi, Shao Chen organized his thoughts. Then, he said, it is just a personal feeling of mine. I feel that it lacks the taste of nature, like it was sculpted by someone. However, to most people, it is no different from perfection. When Shao Chen looked at Yu Chenxi noticed him as well. Yu Chenxi smiled faintly and projected her voice. Shao Chen, I will be waiting for you in the ranking battles. I hope that you can make me use my full strength this time. Shao Chen projected his voice as well and replied with a smile, don't worry. I will not disappoint you. As the first person to defeat a noble clan disciple in the past few five-nation youth competitions, Yu Chenxi immediately became the focus of everyone's attention. Everyone predicted that Yu Chenxi had the strength to fight for the top 5, that she would be the greatest dark horse in this five-nation youth competition. Even Shao Chen and Chu Chaoyun could not catch up to her. Every generation had its own talents. Be it Shao Chen, Chu Chaoyun, or Yu Chenxi, they all proved this saying very well. This made this five-nation youth competition filled with vigor and added a lot of excitement. After all, if the same people kept winning, the competition would become boring. The city lord's residents, the organizers of the competition, were very satisfied with the performances of the contestants. The influence of the five-nation youth competition would only grow if the competition was filled with surprises and surprises. At this point in the second round of elimination, there were not many matches that could excite the crowd. After all, the seeded contestants were separated. There would not be too many strong matches. However, the match between Xianyuan Zhantian and Chu Chaoyun was regrettable. Chu Chaoyun and Xianyuan Zhantian exchanged 10 moves each before tacitly deciding to end in a draw. However, when one thought about it, it was understandable. Before the true ranking matches, the difference in strength between the two was not large. If they really fought, they might have to use up all their trump cards. At that time, when they faced the other heirs, they would lose a lot of their advantage. Next match, Shao Chen vs Lin Fei. Amidst this dull competition, the referee's voice, which was neither too loud nor too soft, immediately attracted the attention of quite a number of people. Their gazes were cast onto the dueling ring of Group 5. Shao Chen and Lin Fei are both on the newcomer ranking list. Furthermore, they have not tasted defeat yet. Given Lin Fei's character, he will definitely not end the match tacitly. That is natural. Ever since Shao Chen defeated Gong Yangyu, his popularity has surpassed Lin Fei's. He has probably been suppressing his anger for a long time. Lin Fei's strength is also somewhat unfathomable. Practically no one can truly block that Earth Vein Saber technique. No one knows if he has any other trump cards. Chu Chaoyun and Xianyuan Zhantian are tied. In that case, their consecutive victories have come to an end. The only newcomers who still have consecutive victories are these two. Chapter 583. This match will definitely be very exciting. Both of them are expert bladesmen. Furthermore, they are both newcomers. Both of them have a winning streak. There are too many things to watch. In this relatively uninteresting match, before the match between Xiao Chen and Lin Fei even started, many people started discussing it. Lin Fei had been waiting for this moment for a long time. As the others said, he had been suppressing a fire in his heart. After the referee announced the match, Lin Fei pushed off the ground and landed in the arena. Xiao Chen, don't think that just because you defeated Gong Yangyu, you can suppress me. Your winning streak will end here. When Lin Fei saw Xiao Chen enter the arena, he smiled disdainfully and purposely teased him. Xiao Chen remained unmoved. He said calmly, just make your move. Let's see who will end whose winning streak. Lin Fei's earth vein saber technique was unpredictable. It was indeed difficult to deal with. However, it was as Xiao Chen said earlier. If Xiao Chen wanted to use a surprise move to obtain victory, he could not keep going down this path. After using the earth vein saber technique too many times, it was no longer a surprise move. Ha ha. In that case, hold your saber tightly. I'm coming. Lin Fei smiled gently, and his aura suddenly changed. His gaze became as sharp as a saber as he quickly flew towards Xiao Chen. It had to be said that Lin Fei was indeed a brash person. However, when he entered a state of combat, his initial disdain and anxiety immediately vanished. If someone was confused by the aura Lin Fei displayed, they would be at a disadvantage. Qi! Qi! Lin Fei's speed was extremely fast. His body was like a solitary, sharp treasured saber. The formless wind in front of him was sliced in half like a piece of paper. When Lin Fei was 10 meters away from Xiao Chen, everyone thought that he would attack Xiao Chen head-on or circle around to attack Xiao Chen. Suddenly, Lin Fei's upper body fell down. If it were an ordinary person, they would think that he tripped over something. Naturally, the cultivators did not think so. Lin Fei had suddenly changed his move. His entire body was on the ground, and at some point, he had already drawn his saber. The edge of the saber flickered with a cold light. His entire body flew towards Xiao Chen at an extremely fast speed. The tip of his saber was pointed at Xiao Chen's knees. How unexpected! To think that Lin Fei would actually attack in such a manner. Furthermore, he was able to change his attack in such a short period of time. Most importantly, his movements are flawless. It's as smooth as flowing water. It's obvious that he's practiced it countless times. It looks like it was no coincidence that Lin Fei was able to reach his current level. Many martial artists on the platform exclaimed. If they were to face such a situation, it was very likely that they would be caught off guard and would lose their combat strength. Even if Xiao Chen reacted quickly and dodged Lin Fei's attack, he would immediately lose the initiative and be forced to defend. How would Xiao Chen respond? When many people faced such a move, their first reaction would be to retreat. This was because the lower body of a cultivator was the hardest to defend. Furthermore, Lin Fei's attack was very fast and unexpected. It would be even more troublesome to block. Hence, retreating was the best option. Even if they lost the initiative, there was nothing they could do. However, Xiao Chen did not retreat. This was because he did not need to retreat. In the time it took for a spark to fly, Xiao Chen moved. He held the sheathed lunar shadow saber in his left hand and used the tip of the scabbard to chop at Lin Fei's wrist. The tip of the scabbard pointed downwards. Its speed was extremely fast, giving off a piercing sonic boom. If Lin Fei's wrist paused for a moment longer, the scabbard would pierce through his wrist. Relying on the speed of his attack, Xiao Chen reacted first despite making a move later. He immediately negated Lin Fei's unexpected attack and placed his opponent in an awkward position. If Xiao Chen's saber moved forward another step, he would be able to kill this strong opponent until he lost his combat strength. This was a great temptation. However, if Xiao Chen was too slow, his wrist would be pierced, and he would lose his combat strength. Victory or defeat was decided by a single thought. A simple move was enough to shake people to the core. This move of Xiao Chen's was to compete in speed with Lin Fei. He did not say anything, only asking if Lin Fei dared to compete. Did Lin Fei have the courage to compete? If you were faster, you would win, becoming the center of attention. If you were slower, you would immediately fall into the abyss. You would end up like Lu Xiaoyun, in a sorry state, losing all face. The huge contrast challenged Lin Fei's mental state. If Lin Fei's mental state was weaker, it would severely affect his performance in such a torturous situation. If he hesitated, he would not even have the chance to make a decision, he would be defeated. After seeing Xiao Chen and Gong Yangyu's fight, Lin Fei knew how fast Xiao Chen was. Hence, he retreated. In the end, he did not dare to compete in speed with Xiao Chen. Lin Fei slapped the ground with his left hand and stood up again. His sneak attack failed, and he lost the initiative. He had to quickly pull away from Xiao Chen. Lin Fei had an unsightly expression as he quickly thought to himself. Bang! There was a loud sound as the tip of Xiao Chen's scabbard crashed into the wind cloud platform. Then, it sank in by 3 centimeters. The force was so great that it flabbergasted everyone. The most terrifying thing was that even with such a great force, the wind cloud platform did not crack. The force did not leak out at all. Everyone was horrified. If Lin Fei had not retreated, this move might have chopped off his palm. Xiao! A lightning-like saber light flickered. After Xiao Chen stabbed the scabbard into the platform, he did not pause at all. He immediately drew the lunar shadow saber and hacked at Lin Fei with both hands. Taking advantage of your weakness had always been Xiao Chen's style. Now that the other party had lost the initiative, this was the best opportunity to make a move. Xiao Chen did not make a move yet. When he made a move, he had to do it with the force of a thunderbolt, injuring or crippling his opponent. Lin Fei had just stood up and did not have the time to put some distance between them. When he faced this thunderous saber strike, he could only place his left hand on the saber and hold it across his chest to defend passively. Dang! A huge force crashed into Lin Fei's saber. It was like a mountain of thunder pressing down. Lin Fei did not even have time to react. He vomited a mouthful of blood and shot back like a cannonball, crashing into the wind cloud barrier. The huge rebound caused Lin Fei to fall to the ground. He vomited another mouthful of blood, and his complexion turned incredibly pale. Xiao Chen flew forward, not giving Lin Fei a chance to catch his breath. He executed his state of massacre and state of thunder, not giving Lin Fei a chance to react. He launched an unending barrage of attacks. Dang! 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 When the weapons clashed, sparks flew. Lin Fei struggled to deal with the attacks. He was pushed back repeatedly, and his pale face turned even more unsightly. Every one of Xiao Chen's saber strikes contained vast force. With the support of the two states, the might was even greater, worsening Lin Fei's injuries. If this continued, Lin Fei would definitely lose within 100 moves. Earth Vein Saber Technique. After enduring for a long time, Lin Fei finally grasped an opportunity to execute the consummate technique that made him famous. When Lin Fei blocked Xiao Chen's attacks, a strand of saber qi suddenly shot out from his feet, heading for Xiao Chen's chest. The might of that earth vein saber qi was also very vast. It used the earth as its source of power, and it was no weaker than Lin Fei's full-powered saber strike. Lin Fei did not hope that this strand of saber qi could injure Xiao Chen. He only hoped that it would give him a chance to catch his breath. After being severely injured by Xiao Chen's saber strike, Lin Fei still had no chance to catch his breath. The injuries in his body worsened. If this continued to accumulate, he would not be able to suppress them. Xiaochen smiled faintly and said calmly, I have been waiting for the Earth Vein Saber technique for a long time. Others might fear this Earth Vein Saber technique, but Xiaochen had never feared it. Xiaochen clenched his left hand into a fist and circulated his vital qi. A sharp azure energy gathered on his fist. This was the Dragon Claw Fist's third move, Breaking Armor Fist. Bang! The sharp azure energy clashed with that strand of saber qi. This punch, which had the attribute of breaking armor, immediately shattered that strand of saber qi, turning it into nothing. Of course, the might of the breaking armor fist was completely nullified. As Xiaochen attacked with his left hand, he did not stop holding his saber with his right hand. He swung it gently and sent out an arc-light chop. Another wound appeared on Lin Fei's body. His body was sent flying several times by the lightning currents that exploded from the arcs of light. You are too much. Xiaochen, you have angered me. From the start of the competition until now, Lin Fei had been suppressed from the start. The Earth Vein Saber technique that he was famous for was instantly broken by his opponent. Lin Fei could no longer hold back the rage in his heart. He shouted, and his 3-meter-long saber hummed. A sharp saber intent spread out from the saber. Lin Fei said calmly, originally, I was only planning to use it in the ranking matches. Xiaochen, you should feel honored that you managed to force me to use my saber intent. The cultivators in the spectator stands were immediately astonished. They had not expected Lin Fei to have hidden himself so deeply. He had actually comprehended saber intent, the most difficult thing for a bladesman to comprehend. Furthermore, he had not used it yet. This time, Xiaochen is in trouble. With the support of saber intent, the might of a bladesman's martial technique will increase by at least 50%. Looking at Lin Fei's saber intent, it should have reached 20% as well. It is only slightly weaker than Bai Qi's. Furthermore, they are both bladesmen. If one side has saber intent and the other does not, the difference will be even more obvious. Indeed, a swordsman can use sword intent to block. What can a bladesman use to block? A cultivator in the spectator stand sighed softly. Saber intent was hard to comprehend. Once one comprehended it, one would gain boundless might. This was already a publicly acknowledged fact in the world of cultivators. The situation was probably going to turn around soon. Withering grass and trees. Lin Fei roared ferociously and executed his trump card martial technique. A desolate aura spread out from the saber's edge, making everyone feel the heavy aura of death. If there were any flowers or trees here, the power of this saber strike would definitely cause them to wither quickly. With the support of saber intent, the might of this move increased explosively. It contained the power to wither everything. This time, Lin Fei took the initiative to attack, hoping to turn the situation around in one move. Xiaochen smiled faintly and said indifferently, saber intent? I seem to know it as well. Wang! The long, pitch-black lunar shadow saber trembled uncontrollably. A saber intent that was even stronger than Lin Fei's spread out wildly from the saber's edge. The strong saber intent pierced through the wind-cloud barrier, causing the bladesmen nearby to feel fear. The sabers in their hands trembled as well. This is a peak small perfection saber intent. It is on par with Bai Qi's saber intent. This is too shocking. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen comprehended saber intent as well. Furthermore, it is much stronger than Lin Fei's. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.